Testing.
Okay, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a special Committee of the Whole meeting. Today's date is Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, and the time is 7:30 a.m. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss some financial issues with respect to the city. As you see in the notice that we've all have, and those who are here in the audience have an opportunity to grab one from the podium, that we have some presenters today, and then once those presentations are done and questions are asked and answered, we'll move to discuss the 2026 city budget. We're going to stay on task, on time, and so we're prepared for the regular committee of the whole meeting at 9 a.m. So I just want to let everyone know that these budget meetings are now being recorded, and so the people are able to listen to these budget meetings at home. And so we'll start with item number 1 on the agenda. We'll move the special committee of the whole meeting agenda over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is an appearance by Steve Scharf from Baker Tilly and George Eilertson from Northland Securities.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming up by this invitation today, Mr. Sharp and Mr. Eilertson. We look forward to answering some questions that the citizens that we all have with respect to that. Just turn the light on to green, and please state your name for the record and good morning.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Steve Scharf, Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. So the first item of conversation, first off, thanks for having me here today, just to give the opportunity to have a discussion about some of these topics. It's always helpful to be involved in this conversation, so I do appreciate it. Just kind of to set the stage in terms of the roles that, I sort of participate in as it relates to the city. I know we have George here who'll talk about sort of his involvement and role just in terms of how he interacts with the city and the party sort of plays in terms of the bond issuance process. So I'm a registered municipal advisor. I'm licensed through the MSRB, registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. We are fiduciary to the city. So generally what that means is we put the position of the city and the needs of the cities before kind of all else, including our own needs. But we advise the city on debt issuance, debt management, and sort of post-issuance compliance. So making sure that we're sort of staying in the good graces of the IRS, measuring rebate liabilities if they exist, or performing arbitrage rebate calculations, and then adequately disclosing on an ongoing basis the obligations you've entered into, and the annual requirements or the periodic requirements that go along with that. So we assist the city with issuing and financing projects, issuing debt. We look to structure those that make the most sense for the project. And then we help with the post-issuance compliance as well. So just to make it very clear, we are not underwriters. Baker Tilly is not a broker-dealer. We are independent, so we're not ever in a position where we're underwriting or selling the bonds directly. I think that's part of what the role that George participates in for the city. So maybe we can start with George next. We'd be happy to talk about bond counsel as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Scharf. Mr. Eilertson?
Good morning. George Eilertson, Northland Securities. So just to explain the role that we've traditionally played with the city, and that is, or served the city, that is as underwriter. And so Steve did a great job of explaining municipal advisor and what roles and responsibilities they have when you have a project under consideration. Underwriter is the firm that purchases the debt that the city issues. And so we've done that in a number of different ways in the past. In conjunction with Baker Tilly serving as advisor, structuring the debt, advising on credit enhancements, et cetera. Northland has worked with them and the city getting that debt priced, getting it into the marketplace. So that's our role, is when you have a project like the convention center or a significant street project, those are sizable projects where typically a city doesn't pay cash for those types of projects. They sell municipal debt. And so what our role has traditionally been is to purchase that debt and to sell those bonds into the marketplace to individual investors, community banks, mutual funds, et cetera. So again, that's been our role. We've worked closely with the city. Each time a bond is priced, there is a pricing committee consisting of the city, consisting of Baker Tilly, your advisor, and we, the purchaser, on what's the market, what are market conditions, and then what's an appropriate pricing for this debt. So that's something that it's been a good partnership to date, one that's been very transparent. And so that's, again, our typical role as bond underwriter or purchaser of debt for the city. We have done a little bit of, in the past, done a couple of other type of arrangement, type financing for the city, more of a placement type of debt, where we've solicited quotes from local banks. If there's been a financing that's been very short-term or smaller in nature, it's always of interest to keep the money local. And so we've worked with the city in that regard to solicit quotes from local banks on a tax abatement bond, for example, setting up a revolving loan fund for the EDA. That was done as a local placement financing. In addition, the short-term bonds that were done for a state grant that you needed to issue short-term debt before you got the grant money, that one was also done, $8 to $9 million financing done as a local financing as well. So that's been our traditional role as underwriter. Maybe, Steve, I'll start with bond counsel. Bond counsel is that law firm that represents the city beyond, you've got a local city attorney. A bond attorney is a firm that provides a specialized opinion on the issuance of debt. And they provide the opinion that you can issue tax-exempt debt, for example. The law firm Freiberger Buchanan out of Duluth has been your longtime bond attorney. And so they're kind of the unseen fourth leg to the stool, if you will, where Steve and I can't do our jobs of issuing debt unless we're keeping in close contact with the bond attorney on your issuing authority, the steps that you have to take to meet statutory requirements. And again, just the most important part of their role is to provide that opinion that you can issue tax-exempt debt. There are times when you might have the issuance of non-tax exempt debt or taxable financing, but again, you always need that opinion from the bond attorney, and that's the role that Freiberger has traditionally served as.
Oh, so a question for you in that regard, if I may. So if you could just, we had a presenter come forth, a financial advisor, with respect to why are we using an underwriter as opposed to just issuing municipal bonds through some other entities. So could you please just touch on the difference between the issuance of a municipal bond and a general obligation bond, and what's the city's obligation and what kind of commitment does the city have with respect to the funding that are available to have the collateral for that?
Sure. So I'll start, and of course, welcome George if he has any other comments. I think the first question around the use of an underwriter as it relates to the issuance of municipal debt or general obligation bonds. George alluded to sort of some different methods of issuing debt. And we certainly look at that, each issuance, what's the most suitable, most reasonable, likely execution of the issuance for the project. Generally speaking, an underwriter is necessary for all public sales. They are the counterparty, the market maker for the issuance of debt. The practicality would be that issuing debt without an underwriter, I just don't think is really possible in a public sale environment, because they are the ones that are communicating with those investors that are ultimately holding your bonds and making that market for the issuance. So they are a pretty integral component of the issuance process. In terms of how we would issue or the security of different bonds, from an overarching perspective, all the debt issued by the city is considered municipal debt or municipal obligations. Within that, there's various sources of repayment. There's direct general obligations. Most of the debt that the city issues is a general obligation of some sort. But there's also additional pledges attached to it. For example, utility revenues, sales tax revenues, tax increment. Those are other revenues that would be pledged to the payment of the bonds. And those are generally treated as the primary source of repayment. So to the extent, for example, utilities, we would look for the utility to fund 100% of the debt service, or really 105% of the debt service per year. So it's actually not a direct use of the tax levy for a general obligation utility revenue bond, for example. It's actually paid by the utility. So the general obligation provides additional security to bondholders that if the primary source of repayment basically has some fluctuations that could impact the repayment of the debt, the general obligation's there to backstep that or backfill that source of repayment to ensure that timely payment is made. So there's other versions of debt that can be issued within Minnesota state law, general obligation housing bonds, for example. Again, that's more of a revenue bond. It does have a general obligation pledge behind it, but that's primarily repaid by housing revenues, so rental incomes. There's a statutory requirement that 110% of net revenues be available when you issue the debt to prove out that you're not going to need your general obligation. So some care is taken in that projection in that issuance process. So there's a lot of different buckets that by state law you can issue under. A lot of them actually aren't directly paid by property taxes. Most of them have that general obligation or that full faith and credit pledge of the city. And there's also some that are directly paid by property taxes. So there's varying degrees. I think in the packet, you've got a lot of good information on those different buckets or statutory provisions that allow you to issue debt. And I'm happy to answer any direct questions related to any of those in particular. But you do have a lot of options per state law.
I do have a few questions, but I'm going to hold those in abeyance maybe for another time.
Sure. Sounds like George. might
Thank
have
you.
a comment, too.
Before we go to Mr. Eilertson, you had a question, Councilor Beyondich.
Yes, thank you. Just out of curiosity, George, when you spoke of local banks purchasing the bonds, in the last 5 to 10 years, how many local banks have done that? And which banks are they?
Sure. Let me, and thank you for the question. I can give you two different occasions when that has happened. One was when we established a revolving loan fund for the EDA. That was about a $350,000 taxable tax increment bond. What we did, I'm sorry, with your staff was review the financial options to issue the debt, what was the most feasible, cost-effective for the city. And so what we felt was to, again, put that out to the various local banking institutions. I can dig a little bit to see who purchased that debt, but yes, we put that out amongst the local banks. The second scenario for that was the short-term bonds. Britt, there was a state grant for about 8 to 9 million.
9.5, it was for the.
9.5
Center,
million.
Yeah.
And that one, again, similar scenario because it was such a short-term financing that we put that out, and Park Bank bought that. The first one, Mayor or Council Beyondich, I could certainly, by the time I leave today, I can get you that answer. But yes, there's been a couple different occasions like that.
Because I know we've had some smaller amounts, and I would be curious to know if our local banks were picking those up, and if they weren't, why weren't they? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question, Mayor and Council. And even, I should note, so those are two scenarios where, yes, we did a local sale. Even on a larger financing where there might be a street project that's a 15 or 20-year bond, and I should step back for just a moment and say that a lot of times when we work with community banks, they like to stay shorter, meaning that stay year 1 through 5. Fixing an interest rate for 20 years is traditionally not something that community banks would favor. They like variable rate debt where it resets with the market. And so that's why on a longer term 20-year bond, traditionally working with an underwriter that fixes the rate for, say, 20 years traditionally works better for the issuer. When we underwrite bonds, we do have a sales team that sells to community banks and pension funds, mutual funds, et cetera. The local banks do get phone calls to see if they would like to participate in that financing. So I can't tell you how often they've purchased debt, but they do get opportunities.
Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. Because we don't have a whole lot of small local banks. Most of them are branches of a larger company. So, I mean, even when we say local, it's still a larger bank that would be purchasing those. So I'd be curious to know if they chose not to, why the reason was. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, certainly when we're talking about local bank, it's traditionally not the Wells Fargo, the U.S. banks, but rather those that you have that are smaller community banks that may have other branches. I know that, for example, Franson is much larger now than they used to be. But yes, they oftentimes, and sometimes it's their appetite. Do they have a need to do an additional investment for a certain length of time? a certain dollar amount, et cetera. Sometimes banks, it depends on how they're set up as well. Do they get the benefit of the issuance of tax-exempt debt? So we do, as a rule of thumb, when we issue or serve as an underwriter for a municipality, we try to work our way from as close as we can around that municipality and then work our way out. Again, the keep the money local is always something that we try to do. Some larger financing, certainly the mutual funds have an appetite to buy bigger chunks of that. So it might be a scenario where we sell a small portion locally and then a majority of it elsewhere. But Mayor, if I don't mind, could I answer one additional question about
Please do, Mr. Eilertson. Thank you.
when we talk about how the city has issued debt and underwriter or not, one thing I was just going to clarify there was, for example, your new public safety facility. That was one where the long-term financing is with the USDA. So the USDA is technically being your underwriter or your purchaser of debt in that scenario. So when there's opportunities, and this is something that your advisor and we help your staff look at, is what's the best financing scenario for the city in terms of term, interest rate? And when we evaluated the new public safety facility, we looked at open market financing versus loans, in this case, a federal loan. And certainly that one with the ability to stretch the term out to a longer length of time, 40 years, and have a lower interest rate. That we, in this capacity, both Steve and I would have recommended that, yes, that's the best opportunity for the city. So just a little clarification there on, we may be advising, but not ultimately serving purchasing the debt in a scenario like that.
And the only reason this came up for me is we recently went through a scenario that we may have had to bond for a small amount. So when it's a small amount like that, that's where my curiosity is for local banks not to jump on something that's a small amount and a small time frame. So that's why I'm interested into looking at who is purchasing them, and why aren't they local when it's a small amount? Thank you.
And I believe in that, if I'm recalling correctly, Mayor and Council, the project in question didn't go forward. If I'm remembering the right project, very likely we would have advised on the same manner of issuance if you were needing to issue debt, that is. In this case, I believe what the outcome was is that the city is paying for it out of an enterprise fund. And I apologize if I'm not answering your question correctly, but good question. We ultimately got a question on that, and I think the role or the method the city is using for financing that project, paying with cash, was what we would have ultimately recommended.
Correct, and I don't want to make this go longer, but that's the exact reason, is we were going out for that, was it the camera? That's what came in our packet, and it's like, for that small amount, and yes, they were able to find the dollars elsewhere, but that's not a very large amount to go out and sell for a bond, and we keep bonding, and that's where our problem is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson, question.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for being here. I think part of this discussion was warranted because of the camera system. So I guess I just, going through some pages here, I just want to ask, which bonds affect the City of Virginia's bond rating?
Mr. Scharf?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, council members. I would say pretty well short answer, most of them. From a rating perspective, Standard & Poor's will or has included most of the obligations. The housing-related debt is something that they'll look to pull out, but they have recently revised their methodology, as has Moody's, to take a bit more holistic view on the debt of issuers. So Sort of long and short answer is most of the debt.
Most of our debt is taken into consideration for that bond rating. Okay, thank you. And then on the, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but, so it'd be like the clinic lease, which has been assumed by Essentia, and then the HRA bond, which has been assumed, that's a Washington Manor, which has been assumed by the HRA. Is there any creative ways to get those off of the city's debt books, since they are being paid for by those specific entities? And have you ever thought about creatively putting together a nonprofit entity or a holding placeholder for that debt to go into? So it would be off the city's books for our, basically our credit score.
Sure, thanks for the question, Mayor and council members. So the housing financing is not a direct obligation of the city. There is, an agreement with the county as part of the general obligation pledge that the county's providing. But it's actually the HRA's obligation through the issuance of the debt that just
It's
occurred.
still on our, like, you just stated, everything is under that umbrella and affects our bond rating.
So if I could clarify, the housing-related debt is not part of that.
Does not.
That's right.
So no on the HRA. Okay, how about the clinic lease then, which was in 2018? I think it's on page 1 or 1, 3. Page 3 of the packet. And it says the estimated principal outstanding as 7/10/25 is 7.13 million. So when the city sold the clinic to Essentia, I believe for $1, with the assumption that that bond would get paid off, I was under the assumption they would take out their own bond and pay ours off, but that's not happening. So that bond is going to carry through to the maturity date. I think it's 2030 and 10/1/2029. So that's a sizable amount. So maybe you can answer me. Let's go back to one question I have. The legal debt limit that we have, so the debt margin, that all goes against that debt margin for our future borrowing capabilities.
Thanks for the question. No, actually, a small portion of the city's debt is applicable to the debt limit, so the lease itself would not.
So what can we have on the books in order to continue bonding? Because that's what our problem was. We had too much outstanding debt. So I'm trying to understand how we eliminate that debt, that especially the clinic lease. Is there anything creative that can be done specifically with that lease or with that bond?
Without in-depth consideration of the question, it'd be difficult to provide a recommendation on exactly what we would strategize about that. I would say, from a debt perspective, leases are somewhat interesting. They're not technically debt. It is an obligation that the city would pay annually, subject to appropriation. But from a debt consideration, they're sort of quasi-obligations. I'd say from a rating perspective, they do take those into account. As a way to get it off the city's books, we'd have to look at that. I would say, to directly answer your question, we have not explored that problem set in terms of creatively issuing obligations that aren't direct obligations of the city. One element would be a consideration about a lease, because that is, as I mentioned, legally and technically not debt on a long-term basis.
So what I'm trying to figure out is a way to increase our bond rating. And how can we do that? Not that I want to borrow more or go into debt or bond continuously, like Councilor Beyondich says, that is our problem. We continuously bond. So I'm looking to say, how can we creatively get some of these things off of those? It's still on the books. It's being paid for, whether it's the lease or it's a revenue bond or whatever. But it's still affecting our credit rating. which when we then go out for another bond, we're paying higher interest rates, which I don't think is a good idea going forward. And that leads me, so number one, I would want that, some sort of a solution, creative solution. How do other people do it? How do other municipalities do that? And then this leads me to the S&P rating decrease. And I looked back, so I got elected in 2016, so I've been here since 2017, and I don't know how long our emails go back in the archive, but I could find not one email from anyone, Northland Securities, Freiberger Buchanan, Baker Tilly, stating that Virginia's credit rating, our bond rating, has gone down. So whose responsibility is it to report when a negative downgrade has happened, whether it's S&P or Moody's? Whose fiduciary responsibility is that to the city of Virginia?
If I could maybe explain the process that I go through,
That
that
would be
might be helpful in answering the question, hopefully, and if not, we can try a different way. So from a ratings perspective, when we get that information as financial advisors, our first step is to contact staff. So we do almost immediately get in communication with city staff. My understanding is that information most recently has been brought forth to you all pretty quickly. But, that's certainly not something that we hold by ourselves. It's not our rating to begin with, it's the issuer's, so we want to make sure that's communicated as quickly as possible. In some cases, it does go directly to city staff. It really just kind of depends.
So we need a mechanism, a better tracking mechanism then. So when that is conveyed to our city staff, we need a mechanism to alert the council and mayor regarding that downgrade or upgrade. Any changes, just like your FICO score, I can go on my email and, hey, congratulations, your FICO score just went up, So would that be a mechanism that you would say that needs improvement with the city of Virginia?
Well, I would say, I think staff does a pretty good job, but I'm hearing some element that there can be an improvement. So I would certainly look to work with staff to make sure that that information is being provided.
And
If I could just
so
jump in really fast.
certainly,
Could
Brett.
you maybe explain when a rating happens or why it happens?
Oh, yeah,
Might make
yeah.
a difference.
Yeah.
It's not like your FICO score, you can check it every day. It's a different mechanism.
Yeah, happy to do that. So there's sort of two instances that ratings occur. One is issuer initiated, where we're issuing debt. We're asking for a rating refresh basically on that issuance. The other one is generally called surveillance. So when the city issues debt that has a rating and is maintained over the long term of that debt, the rating agencies are going to periodically review the credit quality of the issuer. That's not something that we know in advance outside of them saying they'd like to have a conversation in the next couple weeks. So it's generally a pop-in, if you want to call it that. And in terms of the rating action or decision, it's actually most appropriate that we don't know until it happens because they are an independent party, so we want to make sure that's preserved. So in terms of, in particular, this S&P rating change, that was not tied to the issuance of any obligations. It wasn't planned or scheduled. Outside of Standard & Poor's, they were the ones that initiated that conversation. And that review's usually annual at some point through the year, but it just,
S&P does a typical annual type review.
yeah, most often, that's
Okay.
right.
So if I may just intercede just for one moment to clarify, I think usually you have an annual bond rating discussion, but do you not with our bond?
Not
do we
always,
not?
no. No, I think it's been a few years since they've actually called us and said, we need to talk to you. And this was a finance director duty, not my duty, since Sherry's not here, I was the one that took the call. And that was part of their concern, was we didn't have a finance director for a while, so I spoke with Jessica from S&P for quite a few months about our process with hiring when we were bringing a finance director on. But anyway, so it's not always every year that I hear from them. If we're still the same, they just don't say anything, we just keep going. This year was, like I said, Jessica called to ask for some information, and I had to tell her Sherry wasn't here anymore, and that caused some concern with S&P. When are we going to replace the finance director? What are we doing? How is it happening? Those kind of things. Sure to have more information.
And thank you. I just wanted to interject to show a pathway and how that came about and how communications worked this time as opposed to before. Please continue, Counselor Paulson, and then we'll move on.
And I'm not trying to, I'm just looking at our overall process because, and the reason I'm asking these questions and trying to figure out if we need to do something different within our internal processes is because this council makes financial decisions on bonding or future bonding based on that rating or based on the need. So if we need a piece of equipment, are we going to go out for a $370-something thousand bond, or are we just going to try to find a bank to finance it? But we're over that debt limit, so how do we deal with that?
We were over the bank qualified limit.
So that's where I'm getting at.
Different than the debt limit. Our debt limit for the city is actually, it's 3% of your estimated
3%.
market value, which is 15,605,61. The only debt we have that's subject to that debt limit is the general obligation bond, which is the equipment bond. So that brings us down 2.755 million. So our legal debt limit as of the middle of this year was 12,850,61. And the $10 million bank qualification, that's a different subject, and these guys can explain that way better than I can, what that means and why we do that.
Okay, so maybe that, and I don't mean to keep going on, but
I think what we're doing here is we were on item 1, which is what are the roles, and that the roles have been defined and identified. And now we'll be going to item B, which is city debt limit and current debt. And then we're talking about item C, which is standard support rating for 1 and 5, and update and break. So we're incorporating all these things together. So we'll just continue to move in that direction if that's amenable, unless you have some additional information to share prior to go there and prior to his additional questions by Councilor Paulson. Mr. Eilertson?
Mayor, Council, thank you for the question on bond ratings and, when do we use them, when don't we use them? And looking back at a little history on the city, the last time that the city used the credit rating or their bond rating was on the second series of bonds for the new convention center. So this was in 2020. And the city had just gotten, after the issuance of the first series, the larger convention center bonds earlier in 2020, the city issued, again, a smaller $5 million bond to finish off the project. That's the last time the city had their bond rating assigned for a long-term bond issue. And to add a little further explanation to the when to use, when not to use, for each project that the city has had subsequent to 2020, and certainly those 2020 projects as well, we as, again, kind of that three-legged stool between Northland, Baker Tilly, and the city would have a conversation about the market and have a conversation about, is it beneficial to have the credit rating assigned? When your credit rating went below A into the triple B category, that's when those conversations more often than not led to let's not have the credit rating assigned because it decreases the pool of potential bond purchasers. Oftentimes, mutual funds, community banks, in their regulations for what can they purchase in terms of what type of debt can they purchase. They may have minimum requirements for an A or better credit rating, but they don't preclude or exclude rather non-rated debt. So we were weighing what's better for the city when you bring bonds forward. Is it better to bring non-rated bonds or is it better to bring triple B rated bonds? And so the credit community kind of dictates that, meaning the purchasing community, meaning who do we sell bonds to? And they prefer a non-rated bond over a triple B rated bond. And so that's, in a large part, led to the decision of not using your credit rating. And so the city was certainly involved in that conversation, and as it would be in any future new conversations relative to your debt. The short-term debt for the new public safety facility, which again, short-term means 3 years or less, that had a credit rating assigned of a short-term credit rating through Standard & Poor's. But for long-term debt, 15-year, 20-year bonds, street projects, larger infrastructure debt, not since the second round of financing for the arena. Hopefully that helps.
And that increases our interest rate by non-bank qualified.
Well, in that
Why
case, it
should
would be
interest rate go up?
non-rated versus non-bank qualified.
Or-
Non-rated debt,
Non-rated debt increases.
it does, you're also saving on the cost of issuance for, you're not going out and getting a bond rating assigned. It's a
I
scenario
do
where.
remember we've had those conversations.
Yes, and certainly, again, we're weighing non-rated versus triple B rated. Is it, what's better for the city? And yes, compared to the ability to issue debt at a former credit rating of the A category, yes, the interest rates are higher. I think everybody in this room wants to work together to get you back to that A rating. But at present, yes, you'd be borrowing at higher interest rates. Something that Steve and I both do on behalf of the city is certainly watch when there's call opportunities, when there's a 20-year bond would have a call rating assigned to it, would be at about year 8 or 9. And that's the ability to lower your interest rate. And so as market conditions change throughout the life of a bond, that's something that your advisor is going to be on the front line watching the market to see if there's any opportunities to reduce your debt.
So I think my goal, and I don't know, I don't want to speak up for everybody, but my goal would be to increase our bond rating so we don't have issues. But if we continue down the trajectory, so this was my expectation that Baker Tilly and you as well with Northland George is that we would have had some sort of counseling coming from both of you. Or I don't know if this is Freiberger's role, but, you know, hey, you guys need to put the brakes on, you need to watch it here because you're taking on too much debt. And then when we talk about our debt levy versus our general levy, we need to talk about those two as combined one levy overall. Because when we enter into these bonds, we're not, I mean, I'm not thinking, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not thinking, okay, overall now, how does that implicate to the, you know, what does that mean to the taxpayer when we're issuing these bonds? What's the debt service on those bonds? It's quite a lot of money. And we're already at 9% on our debt levy right now. Plus our credit rating just tanked again. So this is just, I'm looking for council to come forward to say, hey, City of Virginia, you got to put the pause on, you're doing too many street projects, you're doing too many, you know, we need to hear that. And I don't mean to be speaking for everybody, so this is just me personally. But those are things that are very concerning to me when we just approve things or approve projects or approve purchases. And the thought process behind a lot of the approvals is we'll just bond. And that's putting us in a big pickle until we get some better financial long-term debt management solutions in place. And not only debt management, but long-term, how are we going to pay for things? We need to increase our reserves in order to pay for things. So we're not over this barrel of borrowing constantly. And so it would be my expectation that you would look out for the citizens of the community by letting us know, because each of your companies make money every time we go into a contract with you for a bond, right? I mean, you're making money underwriting, you're making money selling, whatever, and that's the way that it works, and I get that. I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying we need to have better counsel when it comes to what trajectory we're going at with our credit rating. And I feel like that's very important. And then the other question that I have, and I'll wrap it up, I might have more questions later, but why would the city not go with a broker-dealer? Why would the city have one company as an underwriter and one company as a bond company? Why wouldn't the city, what do most municipalities do? I mean, when I've taken out like a big piece of equipment for my business, they have an underwriting department within that. And if I'm doing a lease to own type situation, there's always an underwriting department there. So why wouldn't the city work with a company that has both? So you're not paying twice.
Mr. Scharf?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mayor, council members. I think if George doesn't mind me saying, when you have a single entity performing both duties, there's an inherent conflict of interest or a challenge with that entity because they're sort of serving two different roles. One part of that entity is talking to investors and selling those bonds to investors and to a large degree representing them in the transaction. And the other part is representing the issuer. And it creates some challenges sometimes when those conflicts can exist. That's where a municipal advisor's role is played, where we don't have that. And it, from an underwriting perspective, it allows George to assist with structuring the transaction and selling the transaction and mitigating that conflict of interest. So that's one of the larger goals really anywhere is if there's inherent conflicts, we identify them and we try to mitigate them or manage them to the extent we can. I'll say from an effort perspective that the time is needed regardless of who's doing it. So, I don't think underwriter is an essential component of the issuance process for a public sale. Most issuers have a municipal advisor representing them as their fiduciary. We play our roles. They're essential parts of the process. You need to have a structure, a preparation of official statement or an offering document, rating conversations where needed. So largely the work gets divided. We don't tend to try to overlap where we can. Obviously, we have conversations around structure, terms and timing, and when we would execute the transaction. But we try not to double up where we can. But we also are trying to make sure that every avenue is explored for the issuer.
It sounds like you're saying government is different than the private sector then, because most of the companies that I've dealt with pieces of equipment, it's both. They're selling the piece of equipment and they're financing the piece of equipment and they're underwriting, meaning looking at my business credit score, the health of my business. So you're saying there's no bond companies that are broker underwriter because it's a conflict of interest?
I think if I understand your question, there's certainly broker-dealers that also operate in the municipal advisory space. If that's the question is there firms that do what both George and I are both doing? There are. You do lose that independence, though, so that it introduces conflict of, and by regulation, if you're an underwriter, you can't serve as an advisor. So there's sort of a requirement that you can't do that. So you miss that component when it's a single firm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Before we go to Councilor Johnson, just want to tack on to what the presentation is today. Whenever we want to issue a bond, we all talk about the project. We determine whether or not we want to move forward with the bond. We look for some advice as to if we can issue this bond. And we've had Mr. Arledson here on a number of occasions saying we want to put these bonds out. What's it going to cost us to do that? What are your opinions? And Mr. Arledson has, Northern Jersey has given us, some caution. Well, if you issue this bond, this is how it's going to affect your bond rating, potentially affect your bond or your bond debt, and this is going to eat into your bond debt. So these are some of the things that we can do. These are something that we're willing to do, but what do you want to do as a city moving forward? And then we make that decision if we want. So we are informed as to where we're at. We do have that information before us before those bonds are issued. And so we do have some knowledge as to how that's going to affect our bond debt moving forward. So that being said, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I was going to talk about that exact thing, that we have sat in this room and questioned Mr. Eilertson exactly about those issues and had those discussions here already. Whenever a bond discussion happens, I know that information is in the packet. It's a part of the bond presentation that we get. We get it in writing, we get it on our computers. And then I also know those conversations have happened in this room, and those questions have specifically been asked. So I want to make sure that folks understand that we are doing our due diligence already when it comes to these things and asking those questions. We get those answers, they've been recorded, they're researchable, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to make sure we're clear that all of this information is not new to us. We've been able to access it and have gotten it since I've been here as well. The other question I have is kind of a generic question about where do other cities similar to the size of Virginia sit with their financial pictures? Is this kind of a common thing that's happening because of the world we live in today, or is Virginia unique in its situation? If you could just provide some general information on that. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Mayor, Council members. So I'd start off with saying it's difficult to suggest that there's a sort of blanket uniformity within issuers. I think there's uniqueness with everyone, and their ratings vary. We have issuers from BBB all the way to AAA. It just really depends. I will say some of the challenges I think in front of the city of Virginia, frankly, just aren't experienced every day, but I do think there's solutions. In terms of the rating change, that is something that we are starting to see a little bit more of, just as sort of the macroeconomic conditions change within the United States, the political environment's changing, and it's putting some pressure on some issuers. So I think statistically, rating downgrades are outpacing upgrades. So from that respect, that is not unique to the city of Virginia. It's just a sort of time of the environment we're in that when things get unstable, decisions get made on the rating side. And that's not necessarily an issuer-specific item. If they receive funding from the state or federal government, that's going to drive that too. So I think there's some awareness from the ratings perspective that we have some headwinds from an economic perspective coming, and they're looking to take action to make sure that they're properly reflecting the credit quality of issuers.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Before we go to Councilor Bachschneider, just the question for me is that I think if you peel away the onion, the reason we have you here today is to allude to what Councilor Paulson has indicated, that our goal and objective here is to try to do whatever we can to improve our bond rating, reduce our bond debt. So some of that is that we have long-term debt where we're obligated to do. We're obligated to make those payments based upon what is considered city bond debt, what's not considered city bond debt. All that's been vetted out. We know what that is. We know what our obligations are. So the question moving forward is we've taken an aggressive approach over the last 5 years to try to improve the health and safety of our community through infrastructure improvements, through bonds for streets, and we've been aggressive in doing so. And the citizens want those roads and streets fixed. It's a matter of trying to find that balance between what gets fixed and what doesn't. And so as we look at what the general obligations bonds, a lot of them have to do with street improvements and repairs. We have a very aggressive program moving forward for 26, 27, and 28. And as we move forward down the road and looking at trying to make those improvements, maybe those street projects don't move forward. And when those street projects don't move forward, that creates an infrastructure problem for the city of Virginia. Not just the surface portions of the roads and street construction, but it's a complete reconstruction of the roads underneath with the crumbling infrastructure underneath, which is very, very expensive. And so with the steam conversion moving forward, and I'm getting off topic just a little bit, but it alludes to the bond issuance. Do we fix those roads or not? There was one presenter says, well, don't fix those roads. Just find what's the worst thing, open it up, patch it, and then move on to the next project. Well, when you have steam conversion to gas and you have water lines that will freeze as a result of the steam being put away, we have to replace the infrastructure. Your steam vaults are going down, your water pipes are old and antiquated. The infrastructure underneath is corroded. And so by having that camera, which we purchased, by having the smoke testing, which we do, to try to identify those roads and streets that have to be done, that takes a lot of money, and that takes bond to do that. And so as we move forward in making this discussion, and with your presentation, with the assistance of yours, and the public who's come forward with their concerns, that we have to find a way in which to maybe have to slow the process down. Maybe you don't fix those roads and streets. But 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there was a street program moving forward. That money was gone, and so all street improvement programs were stopped. And so in the last 20 years, nothing's been done for infrastructure improvement except for the last 5 years where we've done some significant reconstruction work. Well, there's been some mill overlays, there's been some skim coats, there's been some things that to temporarily patch those things, but in the long term, it doesn't help whatsoever. So we have to bond for that. We don't have the cash for that. We don't have the collateral to issue a bond with that collateral for our savings account and our investments, because we won't tie those up in for the long term. So we have to make these decisions. The advice that you give us, we have to take that into account and determine how we're going to proceed forward. Now, there are citizens here sitting in the audience today, and those are likely listening at home, that do not want to do that anymore. They want to eliminate a lot of the things that we currently have in place in order to reduce our bond debt, to reduce our debt service, to reduce the levy as far as we can go. And it's a multiple faceted things that we're trying to do, and we're making some progress moving forward in 2026, and in the future, 2027, 28, and even into 29. Maybe these projects don't move forward because we may have to put a halt to that bond debt. But with that, by doing that and trying to maintain, some balance, it's going to have an adverse effect on our infrastructure and the health and safety of our community, and how the longer you wait, the more expensive it becomes. And that's why the can was kicked down the road 20 years ago, because they want to bond that much for it. And so in 2006, we didn't have the bond capacity. So in 2006, when we built the clinic, we built it on an HRA bond, not on the city bond. And so that was a problem. It's been a problem for a long time. And so now we have we're placing our angst on the bond rating, and it's a consideration we have to seriously consider. But at the same time, look at the overall approach of how we're doing things. We have to make sure that our infrastructure is solid. So that's the balance we're going to find. But peel away the onion. The goal and objective here, by those sitting in the audience today and many that are listening at home, is that we don't want any more bond debt. Don't take on any debt. Reduce the bond debt as much as you can. Take what and then in conjunction with the budget, try to eliminate as much cost associated, whether it's public safety, whether it's police, fire, ambulance service, whether it's garbage service, whether it's contract that stuff out, and just reduce the bond debt so our tax levy goes down. And so we'll be talking about that at the later in the committee of the whole meeting about that, and we have a lot to discuss about the budget, and I'll save all those comments for that period of time. So that being said, I just want to give some perspective on, we have to make those decisions, and the input from the committee is very important. So how do we move forward? So if we want to have a bond, we come to you, you determine what you can and can't do, how that's going to affect our bond rating, how it's going to affect our budget, and the decisions that we have made in the past, we've considered moving forward. It's our decision to make. We've made those decisions based on staff's recommendations, from bond counsel's recommendations, and so to try to do what we can to find that balance. If our debt is too high, you've cautioned us in that your debt's moving up. Moody's and Standard & Poor's, they change the rules and how they assess and assign bond ratings. And so in this particular case, they're using other factors that they didn't use before in order to accomplish that goal and objective. We have to take that into account very seriously. So that being said, there's more to be discussed at the budget meeting in that regard, but I really do appreciate you coming here, because it does clarify things and kind of gives us, the public, a perspective that, municipalities have a difficult role. And so Virginia is unique from many other communities. They don't have the infrastructure problems we have, particularly with steam conversion and the roads and streets that have been neglected for the last 2 decades. So thank you. Councilor Bachschneider.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for being here today. I believe that Councilor Paulson asked the important question, and that is, when we take out a bond, you two are paid, which is fine. But I think the second piece of that question is, why would our bond sales advisors ever advise us to not take out a bond if they are being paid from said bond, right? So that's not the role of these two. They are essentially working in sales for bonds, so they're going to advise us to take out the bond. In the packet on pages 7, 8, and 9, which is the S&P Global rating, to confirm that is not you two that wrote us this summary. Is that correct? That's a separate entity that does bond ratings.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's right.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So reading these 3 pages of the packet, I think this is the most important information of the entire packet that we can look at in order to guide ourselves. On page 7, and I have a few highlights that I want to go through. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but on page 7, it says under the overview, the second bullet says, the outlook is negative. The third bullet says, this downgrade reflects our view that city operations are in structural imbalance with a negative balance in the general fund. A negative balance in the general fund. On page 8, first paragraph, it says, the fiscal 2025 budget calls for balanced general fund operations and management reports. It is on target. However, given historical results have been worse than budgeted, we believe it's likely the general fund could see another deficit. And this is the one thing I've kept asking at every budget meeting, is to get historical information so when we're creating a budget, it's accurate. And our bond is looking at this, our bond rating council is looking at this and saying, you haven't been on track in the past, how are you on track this time? In the second paragraph, which is talking about the Iron Trail Motors Event Center and a potential hotel, the very last part of the last sentence, it says, the city's credit quality may stabilize but will not improve. And that's in talking about getting a hotel. And that's what I've been saying. Yes, a hotel is going to help. I don't think it's hurting it's not necessarily hurting anything. It's going to stabilize it, right? And that's exactly what we're being told here. A little bit further down on the page, the rating also reflects our view of the city's negative general fund balance due to 4 consecutive deficits. So 4 years of deficits in our general fund. We now have a negative general fund balance. Second bullet there, last part of it. While management's reported economic development is positive for the city, overall, we do not anticipate any significant strengthening in the tax base or local incomes over the short or medium term that would improve our assessment to the local economy. So we don't have any new economic development coming in to help increase our tax base and lower the tax burden to everyone else. So what are we going to do then? We're going to have to look at making potential cuts. The next bullet, recent budgets that, in our view, included optimistic assumptions and resulted in sizable unexpected operating deficits. Again, we are continue to operate in a deficit. And then on page 9, I just want to point out the upside scenario. So this is this bond council giving us advice on what to do if we want to increase our bond rating. And it says, we could revise the outlook to stable if the city has a credible plan to restore structural balance or procedures, balance general fund operating results without the use of one-time solutions, including funding capital outlay needs, indicating that the structural imbalance has been cured. So we have to create a plan that is going to affect us long-term and not fix things in the short term. So those are the things that I just really wanted to point out based on this report. And then I'm probably the counselor that votes no on spending money the most often, in my view. And I voted yes to have Baker Tilly come in and give us a financial assessment and the needs of the city. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what that advice is, because I know that we need help. I know that I'm fully aware of that. I'm never going to sit here and say that I know everything, because I do not. But that's one of the very few things that I'm like, yes, I want to invest in this, because they're saying we need a long-term plan to fix it. So I'm very much looking forward to the long-term plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Buck-Schneider. Okay, so we've talked about what the roles of the municipal advisor and the underwriter and bond counsel. We've talked about the city's debt limit and the current debt. We've talked about the standard support rating for 2025. And so does anybody have any questions or comments about that presentation from the elected body in that regard before we go to item D on the agenda, which is the update on the Baker Tilly financial planning model? Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's very important to understand that the council has voted for every, where we are right now. For years, the council has made decisions based on how much taxes people want to pay, and have not sufficiently funded the levy. For the last at least 2 years, I have not voted for the levy because it is not sustainable to do a 1 or 2% increase on a regular basis. So to answer one of the questions as presented, one of our long-term strategies should be to plan out how we need to raise the levy to get where we need to be. When we were looking at financing the Public Safety Center, one of the recommendations from the state of Minnesota or the USGA is to make sure that at minimum our levy funds our public safety. And we don't do that now. This year we've gone from a 20% levy increase to a 1% increase, knowing that we are going to be cutting positions in public safety. That is how we're managing that. We are not going to be staffing, we're not budgeting for full-time, full staffing right now, because we haven't been fully staffed in our public safety sector for years, for numerous reasons. It just happens to work out that way. So to be clear, this council has made all of these decisions. We are the people that set the levies. We are the people that create the budgets. We are the people that approve the budgets. We are the people that approve every single purchase. And so I'm very uncomfortable with the insinuation that the staff or you guys or other folks are not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it's their fault, your fault, the staff's fault. That's not okay. Everything comes to us. Every packet we get, our packets, when it comes to bonding and contracts, are 150 to 200 pages long. So I accept responsibility. I did not vote yes on the last 2 years' levy, knowing they were not sustainable, knowing that at some point it's going to hit the fan and we can't keep doing this. So when it comes to looking long-term, how do we do it? That has to be an understanding that when the cost of living increases for me at my house by 5% a year, and we're only allowing the city to have a 1% increase or a 3% increase in its ability to charge more, it's not sustainable. And so people in this room, the elected officials, need to start taking some responsibility and understand that it doesn't matter what staff recommends, it's our decision. And we will need to continue to own that, and I do own that, and I will continue. I will not be supporting a 1% levy this year. It is not sustainable long-term, because next year we're probably going to need to ask for a 25% levy to start, and we're going to cut it down to 1%, and we're going to cut more. And at some point, our services will suffer, and they're going to be starting to suffer this year. So I appreciate you coming here and giving us facts and helping us understand why these things happen. The report in the packet is spot on. I'm not going to argue with it at all, but we need to fix it. You can't fix it, Britt can't fix it, Megan can't fix it, this council needs to fix it, and that's where we need to start moving forward from. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Biontich.
And I would like to address part of that conversation. At every meeting, I ask, is it in the budget? Do we have the money? Is it staff recommendation? I don't have those answers. That's what staff is providing to us as a council. That's how I vote. Number two, increase in fees. We have agreed the increase in city fees, but they get whittled down into percentages because we can't afford this much in 1 year. Those fees don't come in percentages. Those fees come to us as a fee. And that's what gets passed on. So there's a lot of small issues going on, but I have always asked the question, budget, recommendation, can we do this? And if they answer yes to all three, I'm okay with it. I don't have the information. That's what I rely on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Beyondich. So I have a number of things here to address, but I'm going to save all this information for the budget meeting for at 9 o'clock. And we may have to start a little bit later, but, the committee of the whole meeting, so because we still have some budget things to discuss. So we'll have to delay the committee of the whole meeting until we finish some of the discussion with respect to the 2026 budget. But we have Mr. Scharf and Mr. Arledson here as an invitation to talk about these things. And so we've gleaned a significant amount of information. So if there's no more questions on item A, B, and C, we'll move on to item D, which is the, yes, please, Britt.
And if it's, since we have George and Steve here, I'd like to ask them to talk about the bank qualified $10 million limit and what that means, because that's really causing a lot of angst among people in the public as they think that we ran out of credit, basically, but we didn't. It's just a tool that we use on an annual basis. And if you want to explain that a little bit.
Thank you, Britt. Very good point. Mr. Scharf?
Very happy to, and thanks for the question, Mayor, council members. So bank qualification, we've provided in the packet, or the information includes sort of the history behind it. Essentially what it is it's a tax incentive to lending institutions to buy municipal bonds. So they're allowed to deduct some of their carrying costs when they purchase municipal bonds. The limitation for that is $10 million issued each calendar year per issuer. And so what we look at from an annual basis is the expectation, the reasonable expectation to issue tax-exempt debt, and what that limit is for the year. Is the city planning on issuing more or less than $10 million? And then we would look to designate those obligations as either bank qualified or not bank qualified. It does not preclude the city from issuing additional debt. There's some nuance to that to suggest that it has to be reasonably expected that they weren't planning on issuing the debt if they begin to deem or designate bonds bank qualified. So I think in simple terms, it's a limit that provides an incentive to banks. It's not something that you necessarily have to do each year. It does provide an incremental rate benefit to designate bonds as bank qualified. Big picture, it's not a 1% change. It's usually anywhere from 15 to 30 basis points. Usually it's gravitating around 20 basis points. So it is a benefit. It's not gigantic. It is helpful. But it's a limit you sort of self-impose each year if you want to choose to designate the bonds as bank qualified, but it's not a requirement if you plan on issuing more. And you can access the market kind of nonetheless. There's different buyer bases out there for bank qualified, non-bank qualified, but from an issuance perspective, you can issue either way quite successfully. So kind of either way works.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scharf. Questions? Thank you, Britt. Okay, let's move to item D, which is the update on the Baker Tilly financial planning model. And this is something we as a council unanimously approved moving forward in order to help us move forward for the long term. And so we've contracted with Baker Tilly, which to do that. So this is the first in a series of explanations and information regarding the planning model for the long term. Mr. Scharf?
Sure, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. We are excited to help in this regard. I think in the conversations that have been brought forth to council, we certainly want to play our part in helping with a long-term plan. Where we are in the process, we've had some good conversations with city staff. We do have a model developed. I think it's quite sophisticated but usable. It's pretty comprehensive just in terms of what we're looking at. We're kind of leaving no stone unturned in terms of each fund and looking at each of those with respect to a few enterprises being excluded. We do have the projections put in place. We're now in conversations or at the phase where we're looking at solutions and how we chart that plan forward. So we expect to continue those conversations with city staff for the next, I would say, probably several weeks, and then provide a recommendation or a few options to implement over the near term, and then present the long-term plan, sort of how it's reflected within those proposed changes. So sort of the thought behind it is any adjustment you look to make, maybe for, the 2026 or 2027 budget process, we would include those and then forecast that out along with any future changes we want to earmark as we proceed forward. So it is a long-term plan. It's providing multi-year projections. Like I said, it's looking at every fund, and then it's rolling up sort of in the bigger buckets within general fund and enterprise. So that's sort of where we're at. We are taking a lot of care in terms of what we're looking at, which is why I'm not here presenting recommendations yet. We want to make sure that what we do provide as solutions are, frankly, not just superficial. We want to make sure that these are possible to implement and are actually meaningful and something that we can sort of put in practice as we go forward. So I've got a good team working with me. I'm certainly not the only one, and I've got folks far smarter than me doing a lot of the work, but we are excited to help in this regard, and I expect we'll have some more information in the next several weeks as we work with staff to provide those solutions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Scharf. I think it's important that we get that update from you moving forward, and we look forward to the short-term and long-term projections you might have for us to help us with our short-term and long-term financial model moving forward. So as we discuss the various challenges that we have as a city that's been brought forth by the public moving forward. So I think we all are concerned about what's going on. We all read, for the most part, I think we all have read through the entire packet, and we are understanding how we need to move forward, and we need professionals. Most of us here are lay people. We're elected body to try to make the decisions that are in the best interest of the city, but we need professionals to help guide us, particularly moving forward. Smaller communities don't have the challenges that we do. We're a population of 10,000. So anything over 10,000, there are other issues. There are other opportunities. We're over 5,000, so we're right in that population, in particular in the what they call the area of not poverty, but in the less economic environment. Because as Councilor Bachschnider pointed out, we don't have the economic development and the business committee and the commercial base to help us offset the cost of some of the things associated with our property taxes for the residential. So I think we need to look forward to that. So moving forward, looking for those things in the next few weeks, we look forward to an updated information for the council so we can move forward. So thank you for that. Any questions from Mr. Scharf or Mr. Arvidsson today? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you. Thank you for working on that. I really appreciate it. When will we be able to see this overall and get an overall view? I really would have liked to have had that prior to us approving our 26 budget, but do you have a forecast of when the council would receive that information?
Thanks for the question. So the model's developed. We're really where we're at right now is inputting adjustments that are sort of reflective of proposed changes or recommendations. I would say I'm meeting Thursday on this project. We're going to talk about that exact thing, what we're looking at. I would expect we would probably, and I'm planning on meeting with Britt later this week as well. We're probably going to have some information next week. I don't want to say it's going to be reliable at this point, just because we want to be very, pragmatic and put a lot of thought into these proposed changes. So it's difficult for me to say, next week is going to have an answer, but I can do a demo of the model. It's probably a lot of sausage making, but there's a work product to be shown. It's just it's not in a package, I think, that's worth presenting to council yet.
And then you had stated the enterprise funds were not included in this. Is there a reason why?
Most of them are. I have to look back at which ones are excluded within the scope of work. For example, I believe the PUC is not in there. And were there any other ones?
Washington Manor, HRA. was excluded,
Yeah. I think those are the only two. Most of them are in there, but there's a few exclusions.
All other
Tennis,
cities,
tennis for all was excluded because that's not.
but all the pertinent ones are
Yes, our
included?
solid
Okay,
waste, our sewer.
Yep,
because that was one of the reasons I
All-
wanted you to
All in
analyze.
there.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of tabs in that thing, so.
Thank you, Mr. Scharf. Any other information to be presented to us today?
For myself, not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eilertson, nothing? Thanks so much for coming. We look forward to inviting you back for some additional information. I'm sure we'll have more questions for you, Mr. Eilertson, and Mr. Scharf, as you put this model together and present it to us in its totality. So thank you. Thanks for coming. Any other questions before we move on to discuss the 2026 budget? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it very much. Okay, we have an opportunity here to talk about the budget for 2026. I think that we've had a lot of information disseminated by staff with respect to that. The recommendation by staff or the model that's being presented is that a 1% levy in the general fund levy, 1% general fund levy. And so that's where we're at today, and I think the goal and objective is to talk about where we want to go, if we want to go any further, or how that's going to affect things. So as we move forward, I just want to just proffer this by saying that at a 1% levy, it does have an opportunity to reduce some of the property taxes from a residential perspective. But it's going to affect three areas moving forward. First is the equipment, whether it's short-term equipment or long-term equipment for 2026. It's going to affect any projects that we have moving forward. We might have to forego some of those projects. And number three, it's going to have some significant staffing effects as well. And so there's been some suggestions made and some moving forward to have us investigate a few things. We have done so. And I'm just going to give you one example. Before we move on from the budget, there was a request that by a resident and from one of our city councils that they want to take a look at eliminating our police department and going to the sheriff's office. And in conversation with the county, they're not interested in providing that service. So just give that update. Secondly, the Minnesota Star and Tribune says, property taxes take a bigger hit all across the state of Minnesota. Levies are increased significantly because of the unfunded mandates moving forward. Now, I've proffered a letter to the editor, which I've asked Jim Bromsess, the editor, to put in the paper, and he's going to put in the paper this week, no later than Saturday. A copy of this letter comes from me as the mayor. It's not representative of the elected body itself. This comes from me, and so I will be sending a copy of that to Pam to send to all of you. I had hoped to have that this morning, but I didn't get the attachment in there, so that'll be moving forward as well. And I have a copy. I'll give you one ahead of time if you like. Secondly, 1% levy is going to have a significant and pronounced effect. St. Louis County has continuing to take a look at our residential property tax assessments. And I think there's the increase in the city of Virginia is around $1 million, and property value increases. And so as we move onto that purpose, unfortunately, the way the timing goes with the county and the way the timing goes with our setting our final levy is that you get your tax statements ahead of time. And many of you probably received your preliminary tax statements for 2026, as I have as well. And to give you the example, 2 years ago, my house was valued at $147,700. It increased last year to $178,000, and with the current projection, it's going to be $205,000, which is a 46.9 increase in property value and taxes. So that is based upon the 20% or the 22% levy that we preliminary set. That's going to change. The city portions will change. It will go down. If we choose to go with a 1% levy, your city portion is going to decrease significantly. But the markers that are going to cause your taxes to continue to rise, and maybe some of them will go down, is that you have that tax credit. I think I have $515 on my tax credit for the state of Minnesota. Others will probably get the same. I think that's the maximum that you can get. And then you have the pressures from where we're at with our taxing authority. So when we have a tax, the property tax values, it's what the county's at and where the school district's at, as we all know, we can't do anything about that. We can do something about our city taxes as well. But even if we have a 0% levy, your property taxes likely will rise in many instances because your property values have increased. And even though the budget is zero, if it was a 0% budget, your tax is going to increase based on the city's current levy before from the previous year. In addition to that, the county and the school district, and what is the total estimated market value increase of property taxes in the city of Virginia, and a heavy burden is on residential and industrial this year. And so we don't have the business taxes, as Councilor Bachschneider adequately and accurately alluded to. We don't have that increase in our retail and business property in order to try to reduce the pressures of property taxes in the city of Virginia. So it's not just one thing. It's a variety of issues as we talk about this. But today, we're here to talk about the 2026 budget and where we're at right now. And so, Britt, I would turn this over to you, and then I will ask the council, are there any other questions or comments you have or recommendations moving forward? Before we go to you, we'll go to Councilor Bachschneider. Councilor Bachschneider.
Thank you. The question I have is actually unrelated. Can we start the committee of the whole after 9 with how it's listed, or do we have to start at 9? It doesn't say in the packet, like, following this meeting. I think we have to start at 9.
We have done that in the past. We have started the committee of the whole late because we have another committee of the whole prior to that. And this is a committee of the whole, special committee of the whole, which technically would follow, but I would defer to Pam. I know we've done that in the past, and it is currently being recorded. So if we want to hold the budget discussion in advance and go through the regular committee of the whole meeting, and then we can come back to the general budget discussion, we can certainly do that as well. Okay, so the question that Councilor Bachschneider has, do we have to start the committee meeting at 9? The recommendation by our city clerk is that we do. And so we are going to hold the budget discussion in advance until after the committee of the whole meeting, which is whenever that gets done. Following that, we'll continue on the budget meeting. So we're going to recess the special committee of the whole.
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. Is it possible to continue this current meeting? Because we have done that in the past, and maybe some decisions that are going to be made going forward on voting would pertain to some discussion that we would be having regarding.
Or Mayor, my other question would be, can we officially start the committee of the whole meeting and include this as an agenda item on the committee of the whole instead and do it first? I just want to make sure that if we have to start it at 9,
Hey,
we do.
let's do this. And this is a creative way in which to do so. Can we take item 2 and move this to the regular committee of the whole meeting, which is scheduled for 9 a.m., and then we will adjourn the special committee with the motion of moving this discussion of fiscal year 2026 budget to the regular committee of the whole meeting. But the question that I have is, because it's not on the agenda, is that possible to do so? And I would have that question.
So, thank you, Mayor. I guess it doesn't really matter because it's not listed on the regular agenda, which is posted for 9 a.m. If it's going to be after, it's still going to be at the end of that meeting, regardless.
So under other, before it goes, under other items of concern, it would be, the budget will go with that. Okay, we can add that then, we can do that.
Well, I'm just saying.
Go ahead,
Either
Pam.
way, it would still be, so if you recessed this meeting, and then you can reconvene after the committee of the whole, because it's still going to be after other items of concern.
I think Counselor Paulson's concern is that we would like to discuss this first prior to making some of the decisions that are on the agenda today.
Well, I think it's a quandary, and I want to do this legally and not out of convenience moving forward. And so we had this presentation, we allotted an hour and a half time in which to conduct this thing. We had a bunch of questions with respect to that. We're hoping to have some time to discuss the 2026 city budget. So seeing as we don't have council here, I think based on the recommendation from you, Pam, if I understand this, that we should recess this and then add it to the committee of the whole meeting at other items of concern, because under other items of concern, we can add things under other items of concern if they have it. Is that correct? Or not? Not really. Not really. So we can't do that.
We have to
You have an agenda that's
Yeah, we
in
have to-
place.
recess this meeting, go through the whole committee of the whole, and come back to this meeting, right?
That was the original intent, yes.
So not under
Items
other
are you,
not the other item.
No,
under
but the
other
original
items of concern.
thing was to recess this meeting, go to the committee of the whole meeting, and have this budget discussion at the end.
That was me trying to be creative, but.
Understandably so, and I certainly concur.
Yeah.
Okay, so the goal, I think what we'll do here is we'll recess the special committee of the whole meeting, and we'll convene the committee of the whole meeting at 9 o'clock, and at the completion of the committee of the whole meeting, we'll come back to the special committee, the notice, and move to item 2 to discuss the 2026 fiscal budget. Correct?
correct.
Well, we'll do that. So we don't need a motion for that?
No, I will just recess the meeting at,
Okay, we'll recess the meeting at 8:59 a.m., and we'll reconvene the special meeting at immediately following the committee of the whole meeting that's regularly scheduled with the regular agenda items. So thank you very much. We'll adjourn, and I know we have to start in 1 minute, but I don't think it'll have any harm if we start a few minutes late. We can take a little break. Does anybody want to do that? Yeah, let's just take a quick break, a couple minutes, and then come back and we'll start the communal meeting. Thank you. Okay, we can get started. If everybody please take their seats, thank you. Wait for Pam to get back, and then we'll start the committee of the whole meeting. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. Apologize for the late start at the Committee of the Whole meeting, but we had a budget meeting and a presentation that we have to continue at the end of this meeting. So we'll call this meeting to order, which is the regular scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting, Tuesday, November 18, 2025. The time is 9:08 a.m. We have a full agenda. Hopefully, we'll get through it as efficiently, as effectively as we possibly can, so we can move on to the budget discussions and reconvene the special meeting at the end of this Committee of the Whole meeting. So we'll turn this agenda over to our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
The first item on the agenda is a request to approve the resolution to purchase a 2026 Chevrolet Tahoe in the amount of $55,329.96 for the Sprint Medic program.
So moved.
I'll move to approve by Councilor Johnson. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
By Councilor Bachstein for further discussion. Further discussion, this is part of the Sprint Medical thing. The state of Minnesota funds this moving forward. You're getting all your equipment ready to go before this program gets started. I know it's a long, arduous process and moving forward. So before we present further discussion, Councilor Bachstein.
Thank you. That was part of my question, but I'm curious what the remaining balance of the Sprint Medic program is. I know it's all reimbursed, or I'm assuming that there's still money there, but.
Yeah, we have, I don't know the exact numbers, just over $2 million
Okay,
remaining.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bachstein. It has been moved, supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So I know that this is reimbursed. Is it from that account, Eric, or is it the county pay us and the state pay us, or does it all go into that account, or how does that work?
So how it works is the Sprint Medic pilot program grant was issued to St. Louis County. We are a sub-grantee. So we'll get the invoice from North Country Ford, who is the state bid dealer in the area. Our finance department then invoices St. Louis County. They pay us, and St. Louis County does a reimbursement form through the state, and then they get the state money back into their coffers.
And then what capacity is this vehicle used?
So this third vehicle is kind of a spare, if you will, because there will be maintenance issues, oil changes. So by having a third vehicle in the Sprint Medic fleet, it'll give us a higher percentage chance of having a Sprint Medic in the west, which is Cook, Bois Forte, and Orr, and then a Sprint Medic in the east, which is Tower, PSA. Whereas if we didn't have this every time we needed an oil change, or heaven forbid we hit a deer or something, we'd only have one vehicle. So this is a third for contingency issues.
Okay, and then is there space in the current garage bays to house this?
This one will more than likely be parked outside. I shouldn't say this one. The third vehicle, whether we rotate them or use it as spare, it's not going to be as fully equipped as all the other ones. The cardiac monitors, the ventilators, soft supply medications. We're not purchasing enough for all three vehicles since we're only running two. So this one will remain fairly empty until we need to put it in service. Then we'll just have to do an equipment swap.
Okay.
So,
And then this is not a take-home vehicle, right?
no, this is,
So this will remain on-site if needed, or at the safety center? Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and as this was discussed previously, this is an ALS service, right? So it's advanced life support to protect people's lives. This was a gap funding or an idea by the EMS task force of the state of Minnesota to provide that. And the EMS paramedics are going to staff that and be reimbursed by the state for that as well. So this is to provide the northern area with some ALS service to help save lives, and that was part of the gap for EMS funding until they could figure something out in the future.
yep. So the pilot funding will cover the costs of the employees, the medics that actually go to the PSAs.
Right.
In our budgets, we have approximately $75,000 a year written in for administrative fees. So meetings, reports, all that stuff that myself and Chief Frederickson have to do, we'll submit for that and get reimbursed for our time as well. And then, PR flyers and things like that, so we can get the information about the pilot program out to the communities that we're going to be partnering with.
Yeah, and in testimony at the EMS a couple of years ago, that was the purpose, was to not burden the city who's providing this service with anything fully reimbursable based on a healthy allocation from the state in light of not funding an entire EMS program. So thank you for that. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Item number 2 is to discuss the maintenance worker position at the various city buildings.
I see that there's been some rotation of services in some of the city buildings. The maintenance worker, Mr. Falkowski, who was originally just assigned to do City Hall, is doing double duty. I think there's a little bit, and there's another employee there. So they're rotating in different areas of the city. When the public safety building comes into play, I think that's part of the discussion, how are we going to provide maintenance to all those 3 facilities and how that's going to work. So that's the purpose of the discussion today. Councilor Bachschnider?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm the one that requested this to be on the meeting today, based on a vacancy and potential for filling that vacancy. So my first question is, it looks like currently there's 4 different versions of our maintenance workers. Is that correct?
Correct. The one that's on page 15 is the foreman type position. That is Kurt Kessinen's role, where he goes from building to building and has a little more authority and level of the word
He's
just reminded me.
providing, he fixes a lot of
Yes,
things, and he's
yes.
boiler and all those kind of things. He's the Rod Sepula of the city, where he does all those things. Other maintenance things like what Mr. Falkowski does here is a little lower level of
Correct, is more custodial
Was
than
custodial,
maintenance,
right.
whereas that first one is more maintenance than custodial.
Okay, thank you. One thing, and I know that there was a meeting, and I'm looking at my notes back on September 26, 2025, internally, regarding the custodial and maintenance staff at the new Public Safety Center. One thing I'm curious about, and I think Councilor Johnson brought this up as well, is did we discuss exploring kind of creating one job description, and maybe potentially it's 2, one with like what Kurt does and kind of that overall oversight, and then a second job description of people can essentially float between any of these departments depending where our needs are. Has that been explored?
We did have a conversation with AFSMI regarding that potential, and we haven't gotten very far with it yet, but we did mention to them creating a maintenance department, essentially, and so that they would all report to kind of the same pool. Right now, they all have different supervisors. All those different positions have different people they report to. And this way, they would report to 1 or 2 people, and then they would dilly out the duties for the day, whether it's shoveling over here, shoveling over there, and then after that, you go clean here, and then after that, you go clean there. And we certainly could explore that farther. Like I said, I did talk to AFSMI about it and explain that that's our goal. The questions AFSMI had was about the new building. How many air filters did we have? And I don't think I've got the number yet, but I'm supposed to get that soon. And then what the boiler license requirement's going to be at the new building.
Okay, thank you. It would be my preference that that's what's explored first. And this conversation was because the library maintenance worker position is vacant. Is that correct? Thank you. So it would be my preference that we look at creating a maintenance department and figuring out that strategy first, and then going back and looking at filling that library position. So not filling it for now, seeing what we can come up with based on structure, and then deciding if that position is needed or not. So that would be my preference, and I'll wait to make any motion and kind of see what the discussion goes to.
Thank you, Councilor Bachschnider. Any other discussion moving forward? This is part of the discussion piece. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. As evidenced by the water break at the library yesterday, having a maintenance person that is regularly at the library is important. These little things happen from time to time, but I am very much in support of creating a maintenance department that would be able to focus on daily activities and then be assigned as needed I think it allows for better planning. I know that when an individual takes a day off that's assigned to a building or a week off for hunting or whatever, there is a little bit of scrambling that happens to see who can get there to, especially if there's a major snowstorm or stuff. So I think there's a more efficient way to utilize our staff. I don't know that one less person is the right answer when it comes to that, simply because of the number of buildings we have and how it works. But I think having a group of folks who have general knowledge of all the buildings, and of some of them being stationed, for a bit lack of a better term, in those buildings for the day-to-day stuff is reasonable and an effective use of what we need to do. Because there's times when, like at the library right now, the tables they have there are so incredibly heavy. It takes a couple people to set up a room for an event. And to not have anybody there means we are pulling people from somewhere else. Whereas the library knows there's an event where they need 50 chairs. Having people the day before come and set that up as a team is a better use of time of our staff, as well as the library, knowing job descriptions as they are. So I would also be very supportive of looking at a department, or not a department, but a subdivision of maintenance to help manage the city, and then build in some redundancies and efficiencies for time off, vacation, or accidents.
Yeah, and I concur as well, because there's a tier of responsibilities right now, from custodial to a higher level of skill with respect to repair and maintenance and those kind of things, where an individual is trained in which to do that and has the expertise, where the person in the custodial position doesn't have that. So I think that bodes well for an exploration and to move forward. And I know it might be a temporary adjustment to move staff around until we figure this out, but I concur that we should take a look at not filling the position now at the library maintenance until we can have those discussions. I would prefer to have those discussions sooner or later. And if this involves the job description change, I'm sure that the bargaining has to be consulted in that regard. And I think we should move forward with that as well. So thank you. That's my discussion. Councilor Johnson.
I do want to reiterate that we do need to have a plan for library maintenance, though. Like, there needs to be somebody assigned, if nothing else, to go over there daily to see what needs to be done. Just leaving them to ask for help when they need it, I don't think is a fair way to deal with the library issues, as it is a very old building and there are daily maintenance needs. So since there didn't seem to be any motion, I will make a motion to direct staff to coordinate daily maintenance at the library until the position has been decided on.
Support.
Moved by Councilor Jonathan, supported by Councilor Bachsteiner. Further discussion? I do. So I think its staff has the authority to move people around on a regular basis, and if staff is going to do that, I'll support the motion. With all due respect, I don't think it's necessary, but the motion just solidifies that, and to give the staff that opportunity to make sure that all the bases are covered, whether it's here at the City Hall, whether it's the library, whether it's at Public Works, wherever the case may be, where maintenance has to be done from a higher level to a custodial level. I think there's a shared services, and as we do those things, then we can figure out a plan on the department as they develop some type of a maintenance structure. Councilor Paulson.
Mayor, I somewhat agree with that. I don't feel like we need to make a motion and specifically for singling out the library, because each city building is equally important. So for that very reason, I won't be supporting it, mainly due to the fact that we already have the ability to direct the staff. Our administrative team does. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, and I would like to also have that included. It's not just to have checking with the library on a daily basis, but here on a daily basis in Public Works or wherever else a maintenance person is assigned to check those out, whether there's one or two people. Kurt's all over the place. Mr. Falkowski is in and out, and that we had the new employee here doing the work as well. And then when there's maintenance was needed to be done at some facility, whether a boiler has to be replaced or a light fixture has to be moved or some, something has to be repaired, that can be done internally at the library, Kurt does that. Some of the maintenance people don't. They have a lower level of ability and concern, so all that's gravitating towards. So I would like to see all those rotated through all the buildings, not just the library, but Councilor Johnson.
My point is that the library has had a dedicated maintenance person for years. And my concern is that because they're quietly doing public service every day, that without specific direction, there can be well, they don't need us today. And I think it's very important that there be a check-in every day as a directive so that we make sure it's being shoveled when it snows as a open public building, that we're not scrambling and the library gets last. The library is probably the most used public building in the city of Virginia by literally thousands of people, and not having that sidewalk and that building ready and open, especially during the winter, is a great concern for me. So that's why I phrased the motion like I did.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported, additional discussion. I just think it gives you, Britt, the option to assign not just to the library, make sure everybody, all the buildings. So if it's specific to the chicken on the library on a daily basis, I'm assuming that you would, as you always do, make sure that all the buildings are covered moving forward. And I would ensure that that would be the case as well. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. By moving this forward, are we creating a precedent with the union specifically putting one employee at one specific location? I would just rather not do that. I would rather have an overall broad discussion instead of narrowing it right now. I just think the more discussion needs to be had. So again, I won't be supporting that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
And just a question, would you be able, so it would pertain also to the public safety building, which is important, the Iron Trail Motors Event Center in City Hall, where the public also comes into the buildings every day?
So again, my point is that the library has had a dedicated person specifically assigned to the library for years, and now it has no one assigned to it, no maintenance staff. All the other buildings have already been managed and have people. I am looking to make sure that it is assigned to a person on a daily basis, not a person every day, but my concern is in general, the ability to make sure the library is open and functioning when it's supposed to be and not left because there's not enough staff to shovel the sidewalks to get in. I am not excluding the overall picture of having a maintenance department. That was going to be my second motion, to continue to the discussion with staff and union representation on how do we create a more efficient way to manage all the city's maintenance, daily maintenance, and ongoing higher level maintenance. But my concern specifically is for the library and going from nobody, from somebody every day to nobody, because staff are, if memory serves, the ability for the library staff to change light bulbs to that is somewhat limited in the contracts and how that can be done. And so I just want to make sure that the library is not being forgotten and pushed aside as the most used building by the general public from surrounding 60-plus miles.
Councilor Beyondich?
And I understand that, and when you alluded to just what you had said, that your next motion, I think I would see it included into that so it pertains to all buildings, because the next motion wouldn't exclude them. So I would rather do it all as one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Counselor Freely?
I think a suggestion could be made, and I think Steve's highlighting the fact that there was significant damage done at that building yesterday, and there was nobody on duty to potentially mitigate or minimize the damage that occurred. So that's what I'm assuming, and I don't know what occurred, I don't know what happened, but in my mind, had somebody been there, potentially, they could have minimized the damage that occurred. That's why he highlighted the library this morning, I'm assuming, so that's just my thought.
Jody, you're in the audience. When did this break occur? Did it occur on Monday or did it occur over the weekend? The last time I heard, based on the information that was presented, that it occurred sometime after the close on Saturday.
Yeah, we were open on Saturday to 2 o'clock, and thankfully Jimmy did come at 7:30 on Monday. Just so you know, last week, we had nobody. We limped through last week, so I appreciate that. We just need to make sure that we do have people, because we are very well used. So yes, we don't know the exact time yet. We're trying to check our cameras, but the drinking fountain decided to explode. We damaged 5 rooms down in the lower level. But I am going to give props to Public Works, Parks and Rec. We had 8 people. Within an hour, we were able to get most of the hundreds of gallons of water out of the building. Service Master was there by 8:30, but we had equipment from Iron Trail, we had all of our stuff, so they worked together to make sure that the damage wasn't any worse than it is. We'll know today how bad the damage is. We had to dry out first, but yeah. So thankfully Jimmy was there at 7:30, I'm usually there by 8, so 30 minutes is a really good thing, but we had to shut everything off, water, all the stuff. But then the rest of the city disrupted their mornings and their usual things and came and got us at least all of the water out.
Okay, so the point I was asking for is that if you came in at 7:30 in the morning and the water was already flooded, it happened over the weekend. We don't have anybody there after Saturday. So
Now I'm very concerned about, we're going to be closed for 4 days. So now does that mean, because our building is old, we have old pipes, does that mean I need to have somebody check it every day? And I know that that's a concern with some of our older buildings. So we just need to think about how we are going to maintain the building. And that's what we're looking at. And that's why kind of figuring out, okay, what are our next steps? How are we going to do this? Staff are looking at how we are going to set up for, yeah, we really do have these tables that are horribly heavy, but we're going to work with the Friends to hopefully purchase lighter tables so we can actually move them without hurting ourselves. But yeah, so we're looking at all these different options, so to make sure that we can continue to offer our services. But yeah, when you have an older building,
yeah,
it is what it is, but we do definitely need, people to help us keep it clean, especially, and the snow removal. The library sidewalks, people forget how much there is, because we take up a whole block. And so, yeah, it's a lot of snow removal.
okay, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate the fact that it didn't just happen, it didn't happen on Monday where a maintenance person was working that could have prevented that from happening. It just happened over the weekend, unfortunately.
Correct,
right?
unfortunately.
And by
yeah.
checking it on a daily basis, I don't have a problem with that, but all buildings should be done the same way.
Yeah.
Until
It's
we
just-
figure out this maintenance
Yeah,
program.
exactly. And all the buildings need to be maintained. We have amazing workers. It's just, they only have a certain amount of time during the day, so we just need to plan accordingly. And that's the hardest part, because we can plan, but then things like this happen. We have, a drinking fountain that decided to explode. Other buildings that all of a sudden the heat stops working. So that's part of the issues. We have a lot of regular maintenance that happens, but then a lot of stuff happens in the city that is very unplanned for.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Thank you. Jody, if you have one more second. You had mentioned cleaning. Did the bathrooms and everything get cleaned every day last week?
Nope.
And that's my concern. We don't have,
There wasn't people. That's the problem. There was so many staff out because of opening of hunting, and we understood that. We limped through. It happens. We're hoping, but this week we have people, so we're excited. But hopefully we don't know if we're going to open, hopefully tomorrow. Again, I don't know. So, but we'll keep advocating for that. But we also know, I am very well aware that there is minimal staff. And so we do what we can and keep us open, and yeah.
thank you, Jody.
we didn't have anybody at City Hall or maintenance either yesterday, so it's not unusual. All week, we didn't have anybody here, so, okay, so it has been moved and supported to direct staff to make sure that a maintenance person checks and does the libraries every day that's needed. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bachschnider.
Can you, Pam, just read the motion back, how it was written?
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Bachschnider, to direct staff to coordinate daily maintenance at the library until a position has been decided. Until the position.
Okay, thank you. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion, please.
Johnson?
Yes.
Counselor Motley is absent. Paulson?
No.
Beyondich?
No.
Bachschnider?
Aye.
Friedlieb?
Aye.
Huffy?
Read the motion one more time. Is it to,
To direct staff to coordinate daily maintenance at the library until the position has been decided. To coordinate daily maintenance at the library until the position has been decided. Filling the position there, or any position, I guess. City.
so it's to coordinate, not put them there all day long?
I understand it as to rotate staff and just make sure someone's checking in every single day. Just make sure that that's happening.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, please.
I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to continue working with the unions and department heads to coordinate overall city maintenance plan and
Support.
staff.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to see the Personnel Committee being a part of that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's not the motion at this point in time, is there? Counselor Johnson?
No, Mayor, I would think that the staff would need to coordinate and then eventually bring it to the correct committee or to the committee of the whole. So as Councilor Beyondich pointed out several meetings ago, it doesn't have to be discussed 4 or 5 different times, that it can come to the committee of the whole and we can discuss it as a group so we all have the same information at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Paulson?
I'm amenable to that. As a personnel chair, I am amenable to that. However, if this discussion has anything to do with budgetary impacts, I do feel that the Personnel Committee needs to meet and talk about this. So that would be my caveat on that. And I understand the union getting together with, but we are management and we need to lead the way on where management feels that we need to go with this situation, whether it's creating the department or what it might look like. That is management's right to basically lead that. So I don't know if your motion doesn't include that, I guess I won't support it. I feel like there's a lot of intertwining things involved with that. Thank you.
It has been moved and supported. Further discussion? For me, and I've had a lot of concern and a little bit of angst from personally about how many committee meetings we have. We have way too many, in my opinion, committee meetings. They're all over the place, or Mondays, or Thursdays, or Wednesdays, or Fridays. They should always be on a Tuesday, number one. And only under emergency and necessary purposes should we have committee meetings. And with all due respect, I don't think this is a necessary committee meeting. So read back the motion and support, and then we'll ask for some additional discussion or a vote.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Bachschnider, to direct staff to continue to work with the unions and coordinate an overall city plan for the maintenance positions.
Okay, any further discussion? Counselor Friedlieb?
Just for the sake of conversation and trying to make an informed decision with regard to what we're moving forward with, for example, the fire department for years has had autonomy, so to speak, self-sufficiency at the building that they're at. doing things that, so I'm kind of wondering what the separation of duties will be. Will you continue to be doing what you've always done that will like minimize some of the responsibilities that would fall on the maintenance department, for example? Or are you expecting to be relieved of those duties so that the maintenance will take over those kinds of things that you've always been doing for years? So that's some of the information that I would like to have presented when we're trying to make decisions, like what has been done, what's no longer going to be done, who's going to be expected to do it, that kind of thing. So that's just my 2 cents on moving forward.
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the discussion as we determine where we're at. So it has been moved and supported to direct staff to do that. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Motley is absent. Paulson?
No.
Yondich? Bachschnider?
Aye.
Friedlieb?
Aye.
Cuffey?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-1 with 1 absent. Thank you. The next item, please.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please, Councilor Bachschnider.
Thank you. Per our Ask Me policy, I believe we have so many days when a position is vacant that we have to post it, and then so many days that we have to fill it. By doing this, I believe the intention of that first motion that did pass is to delay filling this position. So how do we go about either using attrition for I would almost imagine that attrition for the time being and is what we want to do with this role, and then when a new job description is created, assess at the time if we want to add either, one idea I have is, utilizing multiple part-time students, thinking of the Mesabi Evelyn campus and all of the programs that they have. I don't know if that's an option though, but just something to consider. So by not filling this position for the time being, are we within that timeline, and what would the next steps be?
We are within that timeline, and if the motion goes forward at Tuesday's meeting, then then city administration would send a letter to the union stating what the council has decided, that we're going to redo this job description, move forward with the plan to create the department. Like I mentioned, I had already talked to them about that, and that we anticipate meeting with them on numerous occasions with the department heads about how this is going to work and what we're going to do.
Okay, so is there anything additional we need to do right now to not fill this position?
Still within that 45 days.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bachschnider. Good point. Okay. Next item, please.
The next item on the agenda is to discuss the resolution to approve hiring of a lead recreation assistant.
Do we have one now?
We have a vacancy, one left. We had made an offer to another one. It did not work out. Did not come on board. So we applied, we reposted, and Joy has been working with the department heads on this process. We have Joy here if you want to speak with Joy.
I will move the resolution to hire a lead rec assistant.
A motion by Councilor Johnson to move forward with the hiring of the lead recreation assistant. We don't have any candidates right now, do we? Okay, very good, thank you.
They've gone through multiple rounds of interviews, and this is what they want to bring forward.
Is there support?
Support for discussion.
And support by Councilor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Councilor Freely.
And I hate to put people on the spot, but Brian, if you're so inclined to give us an explanation as to the viability and necessity and importance of this position to your crew and your building.
The lead recreation position is the position that implements the events. So we've been missing this position since about April of this year. As we have gone through reworking the job description and everything with the changes of us no longer running concession stands, those duties have been removed from this position. So this position is now a whole lot more event focused. So when we have been hosting the events such as the SME conference, the World Curling event, or any of our other events that we host on a weekly basis, such as trainings and everything, we have either been using recreation assistants or Jen has been stepping up and doing that additional work in addition to her work that she normally does.
Did we not previously have 2 lead recreation assistants at one point?
We started with 2 of them, and then due to budget
reduced.
constraints, we downsized to 1 position. And then that position's been empty since about April of this year.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you. To confirm, we have an event coordinator at the ITMEC.
Yes, Jen is the event coordinator. Her role is working with the client to set up what everything is going to go on during their event. This person is implementing that plan and there for the event.
I think as the event coordinator, it makes sense that you not only coordinate the event, but you are the one also implementing the event since you are closest to it. I've said from the first time that we've posted this role that if we really feel the need for a lead rec assistant, I would prefer we look at doing that on a per shift basis if there's a huge event going on or something like that. But I do not believe this is something that we need and that we could eliminate this through attrition. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bachschnider, for me, I'm really fully supportive of what you do at the Interim Emergency Event Center. It's an important piece moving forward. That being said, I think that we look at the layers of employees that we have, and we've been working without the second lead recreation assistant, and I understand it creates some challenges for you, but at this point in time, not that we would revisit that later on down the road if it becomes an issue, that I also agree that this is a position that is not needed, that can be absorbed by either direction from Jen, Jim, or Bree. As these big events move forward, they all work in concert with that. Bree as the marketing director, Jim as the operations director, and Jen as the event coordinator moving forward. And I understand the need to have it. I know it's a budgeted item, but if we're looking at these things, I think I would not eliminate this position. I would just not fill it until such time as we determine. We haven't had it since April. It's been working fluently. Your staff has been stepped up to the plate and done this a very excellent job, as evidenced by some of the events, particularly highlighted by the Pan Am curling events moving forward. So thank you. Councilor Johnson?
For me, this is a perfect example of when we have such quality staff, they don't want service to suffer. And so now we're punishing them for doing more than what they're supposed to be doing. There is 0 lead rec assistants right now, to be clear, correct?
That is correct.
That is correct, thank you. And our other staff, Jen, Bree, Jim, are not able to do their jobs fully because especially Jen needs to spend hours directly coordinating what's going on site. That is the purpose of the lead rec assistant, to coordinate the event as it's happening while Jen continues to plan with other parties, other customers. Bree's job is to continue to find other customers, and Jim's job is to oversee and check on everybody. And so we're taking out a person, and it's been working perfectly because that's the quality of staff we have in our buildings. And to not say we appreciate the work you're doing, but we understand that you are terribly overworked and that you're spending too much time here is something that goes to show that we are not listening to the recommendations and needs of our staff. This is not a want, this isn't a convenience. Having a lead rec assistant there means that they show up at 6 to get ready at 7 for the training for the day. Jen shows up at 6. She's there all day long till 6 or 7 at night and does the same thing every day. We are burning our employees out at that level, and it is not fair to them. It is not good for their mental health, it's not good for their physical health, and it's not good for their family health. We need to have that employee that fills the worker bee role in that space so the other people can effectively do the jobs that we want them to do. We've had discussions in this room about why aren't the dashboards being filled? Well, because Bree is spending time coordinated events in the building when she's supposed to be outside doing sales. Jen is doing, when we had Breakfast Connections there was not a lead rec assistant there to help. So Bree and Jen were doing their jobs that morning instead of what they should have been doing to promote that center. So we continue to say it's being fine, but it's not fine. Go talk to them, go ask them, go there on one of those days and see what they're not doing to get done what the customer sees. That's the part we're missing here is the customer, they're keeping the customers that are there happy, but we're not generating the revenue that we're supposed to be because they can't do their jobs effectively moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Brian, what's the, is this a recreation assistant, a full-time position?
It is a full-time with benefit position.
Okay, and the salary is 23 something? Right around there? Just, so for, the benefits are full-time benefits, right?
Correct.
And the salary is, it's a 40-hour work week. $25.56 an hour for a lead recreation assistant. And what does a regular recreation assistant make?
$19.04 an hour with no benefits.
1904, no benefits. And so who supervises the lead rec assistant?
That would be Jen.
Okay. And who supervises Jen?
Jim.
Jim supervises Jen. Jen supervises lead recreation assistant. Lead recreation assistant supervises and coordinates the regular recreation assistants, correct?
Not supervises, but help coordinates what they are
Excuse
doing,
me,
yes.
Coordinates. Okay, thanks, Jim. Thanks, thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. I apologize for that. I was thinking about Jim's responsibilities, so thank you. Okay, so it has been moved and supported. We don't? Okay, it was moved by Counselor Johnson. I think it was supported by Counselor Freely for further discussion. Is there any further discussion moving forward? Is this an AFSCME position? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call, please.
Paulson?
No.
Beyondich?
No.
Bachschnider?
No.
Friedlieb?
Aye.
Huffy?
No.
Johnson?
Aye.
Motion fails. Thank you. Counselor Bachschnider?
Thank you. Same question as last time, Britt. What would the next steps be?
This would be one if the council is not making a motion to modify our job description or to reorganize, we should make some kind of motion directing staff to do something with AFSCME. If you want to just have staff send a letter stating that this time, due to economic factors, we're not going to fill this position, that's what we send them.
Thank you. I would move to direct city staff to notify AFSCME that we will not be filling this position.
Moved by Counselor Bachschnider. Is there support? Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Beyondich?
Aye.
Bachschnider?
Aye.
Friedlieb?
No.
Huffy?
Aye.
Johnson?
No.
Absent. Paulson?
Aye.
Motion passes to send that letter 4-2. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item on the agenda is the request to start seeking outdoor rink attendance for our outdoor skating rinks.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Freely. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you. Is this a budgeted expense? Thank you. Have we explored not having staff there and just having signs posted stating, skate at your own risk, these are the hours of operation? things like that.
I'm going to defer to Brian Silber. the park
Thank
board.
you.
Yeah, and so the warming shack has to be open too and maintained as well, so, okay, go ahead, Counselor, Brian, please, thank you.
We have explored those options. One, due to liability of that person's there in case somebody gets hurt. Two, that person's there to protect the integrity of the warming shack and prevent damage and vandalism. We've opted not to just post signs. When we have just posted signs in the past and then had somebody go lock up, the skate shacks have not been taken care of, and we've had some other difficulties. Plus, just for the liability sake of if somebody were to fall, hit their head, and they were the only one there, having the skate shack attendant being able to attend to them or call 911 is definitely in our best interest.
And there were times where we could not fill those positions skating, and so some volunteers from the neighborhood stepped up to the plate, was concerned about the liability with kids being there by themselves, unsupervised, away from their families, for protection purposes. Not that we've had that issue with kids being approached, but I think we did have one a few years back that did occur. So just FYI, Councilor Boxley, please continue.
Thank you. Do you know about what is budgeted for the overall expense for personnel costs to be for this?
For this upcoming budget year, I have budgeted about $25,000, and that covers all three of the skating shacks for an extended season. Budgeting in case winter goes long and we are able to keep the skating shacks open into April, and then also open them again early in December. Typically, our skating shacks do not open until Christmas week, just because weather doesn't cooperate. And we end up closing in early to mid-March because the rinks are starting to break down due to the sun melting them. But the $25,000 does cover all three outdoor rinks being open from early December to into April.
What are their hours? If you could, you could ask, please, I'm sorry.
No,
Counselor.
you're good. That was my next question.
Hours typically have been, and I've, in this $25,000 budget, have done Monday through Friday from 4 o'clock until 9 o'clock, and then Saturday and Sunday, mid-morning, about 10 o'clock, until about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening. Sunday is a little bit later of a start time due to people attending church and everything. So it's...
And do people go during the week, during the day when there isn't someone there? And do we still have the same liability concern then?
Typically during the daytime, during the week is when we've done our flooding, so the rinks are not skatable because they're waiting for the water to freeze. On days when we do not have school, we do see the facilities being used a little bit more during the daytime. We also try and take into account that the school schedule of days off and everything, so we're not flooding. And then we also do try and provide for the rinks that get higher utilization, a skate shack attendant there during those days off of school.
Okay, thank you.
And what is their hourly rate?
That's a seasonal position, and
2025, it's $15.54.
$15.54 is the hourly rate, just FYI. So do we have a motion and a support to move with that? Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Have you ever reached the $25,000 mark before?
No, we have not.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call, please, Pam.
Bachschnider,
No.
Friedlieb,
Aye.
Huffy,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Motley,
Absent.
absent. Paulson,
Aye.
Yondich.
Motion passes 5-1 with one absent. Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item was a request to approve the travel for Pam Levine on Friday, November 21st to Grand Rapids for Region 2 MCFOA training.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson, correct? Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Item number 6 is a request from Brian Silber, Park and Recreation Director, to begin negotiations for the following. The first one's the tennis facility use agreement.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bucksteiner and supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
Next one's the golf course professional agreement.
So move.
Move to approve by Counselor Bucksteiner and supported by Counselor Freelieb, is correct? No? Who is the support? Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 7 is a request to review and approve the Friends of the Greenhouse Memorandum of Understanding for use of the greenhouse for 2026.
So moved.
A move by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Freely. Is this a one-year contract or 5 years?
1 year.
1 year, thank you. Further discussion, Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you. On page 1 of the MOU, page 30 in our packet, it does say January 1, 2024 through December 31, 2024. We would want to make sure those dates are updated to 2026. And then my second question, is this a standard agreement and has Brian Lindsay reviewed this?
He has in the past. Has there been any changes in the agreement? Before we move for you, Brian, we'll answer the question, then we'll go to Counselor Johnson. Brian?
Yes, this is the standard agreement. Brian Lindsay has not reviewed this year's version of it because literally all we have done the past 2 years is change the dates. As you can see, we obviously missed a couple of dates there. Things have been going incredibly well with the Friends of the Greenhouse. They have reinvigorated themselves and are doing a lot of great things. If you have not attended one of their events or anything, I highly would encourage you to get out and see what they are doing. They have become a very valuable asset to this community and specifically to the greenhouse. So please attend one of those. This agreement did go through our Park and Recreation Commission, and they unanimously approved moving it on to the City Council for approval.
Counselor Bachschnider?
Thank you. In the agreement, I'm curious, are we approving the agreement or the amendment? Because the amendment, which is on, oh, never mind, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
We're good? Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson?
Ditto what Brian said.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Item number 8 is a request to review and approve the amendment to the Access Use License Agreement with the Virginia Fire Department and RGGS.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Freely. This is a standard use agreement that we've had in the past. Chief? Thank you. Chief, moved and supported. I see you have divided. Okay, so moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item on the agenda is the city purchasing policy.
Counselor Bachschnider.
Thank you. When I had made the motion to review this, I was kind of under, my impression was that city staff was going to come with some recommendations, and it doesn't look like there's any recommendations. So I took the liberty in making some recommendations on my own. So I'll start on page 50 of the packet, page 1 of the purchasing policy. Under section 2, the second paragraph, It says, in the finance director's absence, the senior finance department staff shall serve as the purchasing agent. I would like that to be the city administrator. I don't know if we have any senior staff identified in the office. On page 2 of the agreement, at the very bottom of the page for level 3, I would like to see the city attorney removed as an option for a purchaser. I think that that maybe made sense when we had our attorney on staff and not as a contracted service. But the city attorney should be removed. And that should follow throughout the rest of the document. I think I found a lot of them. On page 53 of the packet, page 4 of the policy, under number 2, purchases from $10,000 to $25,000, it does look like that we have, that a purchase should be based on a minimum of 2 quotations. I would also like those quotes to be shared with the council. If we're already obtaining them, it shouldn't be any additional work to actually share that with the council. And then on page 55 of the packet, page 6 of the policy, in the middle there, the emergency purchasing, I have removing the city attorney as an option there as well. And then just on page 8, I just have some additional notes overall to the policy, so not related to anything that is actually currently in the policy, but additional things that I would like updated within. The first one being is that I would like to see a form that is created that department heads would fill out with their purchase requests. Think similar to our travel request form. So when there's a travel request that comes in, we ask them, is this budgeted? Where are you going? How many miles? Things like that. So I would like things to ask, like, where are the funds coming from? Is this a budgeted item? If you do not have it budgeted, where are you going to find the funds? And just like a quick synopsis. I think that we all probably get frustrated at meetings when we're asking the same question over and over at every meeting. And so creating it in the form of a form, I think, is going to make that a lot more simple. And then that would be submitted to the council with each thing that each purchase request that we review. And then the second thing that I would like to see added to the policy is a timeline for approval versus a purchase. And so I'm looking at the sewer camera as our example as I talk through this. I do want to make it clear that we would not purchase an item and make a lease and take out a lease on that same day. The lease would need to come first, and then once we have approval of a lease, then the item can be purchased. And I think that includes that we could approve in one evening, approve the lease, and then approve the purchase contingent on the lease information being finalized. And then if not, then that would come back to council. So those are my overall thoughts on the purchasing policy at a quick first look through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Box-Snyder. I just want one clarification item on your recommendations. So to fill out the form, is this on every purchase or purchase over a certain amount? So if somebody needs a new, under the budget, they need a new drill because the other one burnt out. Do they have to fill out a form for that, or is there's a limit?
It would follow what our current limit is. So this would be, it looks like purchases of less than $10,000, the purchases made in the open market by an authorized user. Authorized purchases are strongly encouraged to seek quotes unless the time involved would not justify the benefit, and buy locally whenever possible. So do the purchases of less than $10,000 come to the council for approval? And so I wouldn't need those, I wouldn't expect those to come to the council for approval. It's the ones that are already existing that are coming to the council for approval, so that the 25,000 or the 10,000 and above is what it seems like comes to the council for approval as is.
Okay, thank you. I concur with that. Thank you.
It would create uniformity in the way we're asking for these requests among departments and among the whole city, so it's a really good idea.
So let's pause for just a moment. Did you get all those things? Pam did. Oh, how efficient. That's why you're here. Counselor Johnson, then over to Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. I'm not comfortable removing the city attorney. I think it's an important step to make sure that we are following state statute and our local codes. I think that we have done it effectively, and I'm guessing that the attorney is only consulted when it comes to the legal stance of what it is. You know, over the last several months, we have not had a finance director. And so moving forward, there should also be, maybe it's the human resource person, or there needs to be another contract employee who is added. So we, in the case something does happen to one of the authorized people, we still have the correct amount of people to oversee and vet purchases.
Okay, thank you. I'm comfortable having the city attorney or the city administrator in place of that, so moving forward. But just to clarify, first to you,
Sure.
and then we'll move to Counselor Boxsnyder and then back over to Counselor Paulson.
And just, we had in our office talked about the same thing. It did make sense when we had an in-house city attorney and he was signing. I think that it makes sense to maybe, I don't know that it makes sense for our current city attorney to have purchasing power, but it does make sense to have another position in oversight there. And as far as who that would be beyond Britt and I guess I don't have a specific suggestion, but I think replacing that city attorney with somebody in-house for the purchasing oversight makes sense.
And thank you. And since you made the motion, or part of your, please continue, and then we'll go to Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm fine with, I think removing the city attorney still makes sense since they are somebody that we work with, not on our payroll. I think that having two is fine, and by listing a third, it would be if the city administrator or finance director role is not filled. So that we would have the two and then a third if that role is open. So I'd probably look to Brian on how to actually word that. But I think that having the two is fine. And I do that because this is giving rights of purchases of up to $5,000. If we have a third that's always approved, that's a purchase of up to $15,000, which then would no longer wouldn't have to come to council, whereas in purchases of 10 to 25 do have to come to council. So I do want to keep it in the $10,000 range. And that's why I think a third on an as-needed basis would be the appropriate approach to take. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you. I would agree with Counselor Boxsnyder's recommendations on that. And then I just, in going over, so if we go to page 51 of the packet, purchasing levels on level 1, and the department head shall have the authority to authorize and approve purchases up to $2,500 based on appropriations. And then it just lists the different departments. And I don't know if this needs to be changed or just addressed, but in going over the Elon credit card statements, I noticed already there's a couple department heads that are going over the $2,500. And that's a one-time purchase, is that correct? On that, on what it's saying in our purchase policy? Okay, so I don't know if that needs to be reviewed and changed and amended. Some of those are landfill purchases, so those are expensive purchases, but they are exceeding the $2,500. So that was just one thing that I have noticed over our credit cards per purchase. Sometimes by department heads goes over that $2,500. I don't know if that needs to be addressed, but. Anyone?
Well, I think that, if you don't know they're going over 2,500, maybe, when you go to the landfill, all of a sudden it's a charge. So does that person have to call the city administrator to get approval for that, or how does that work?
They do. Those landfill charges, if they're on the Elon credit card, it's because it's either biosolids or it's a demolition.
Right.
So they do call me to let us know that we're going to the landfill, just in case the card gets declined or whatever it might be. Oftentimes they'll take my card because they know my card has a bigger limit, so in case they need it. So maybe we add some language in there that it's only upon authorized, either with me or Megan. You get to talk to one of us before you think you're going to go over, so that we kind of know what's going on. Like I said, this one in October, I know that was for the biosolids. It was that time of year that you need to haul biosolids, so I know that's what they were doing.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to
No, it's a
address
great
that
point,
there is spending happening on the credit card over the $2,500 limit. And the ones that I saw were landfill, and then the other one was for technology for the police department. So I don't know, and I'm sure that it's going through the proper channels,
Yes, I am
but,
positive that was also ran past me also, and
okay.
I wasn't here that day, so I just told him, go ahead.
So just to address those two. And then on page 50, first page of the policy, item 2, to maximize the use of tax dollars by purchasing goods and services economically. And I don't know what the definition of economically means, because sometimes we have purchases that come forward that are brand new, and I would like to see the economically, my definition is what's the most economical bang for the taxpayer dollar. So I don't know, I don't want to put used in there, but is there a way that we could raise the expectation on item number 2, that it's to maximize the use of tax dollars by purchasing goods and services economically? I don't know, but I feel like we kind of go back and forth with this new versus used constantly, and then we're wasting department head time if they come forward with a new piece, and maybe we'd like to see a used piece come through. So is there a way we could address that in our purchasing policy?
So just off the cuff for me, so when, I think when staff wants to buy a piece of equipment, whatever it is, and staff does the research, does the recommendations, discusses at the staff meetings on Mondays, or beyond that with Britt and the other staff members on what they need. They look at the difference between what's used and what's new, and they make a recommendation. Then they come to the committee of the whole meeting, and we already have it in our packet, and we take a look at what's new and what's used, and we have the department explain that. And I think that's when the economical issue comes to play in the purchasing policy, because we ask, well, can you buy a used piece of equipment as opposed to new? And we have done that before, buy a used piece of equipment, but it's a decision we make. We decide whether it's economically or not, but to put it in the policy, say that automatically that has to be used piece of equipment, not new. I want to make sure that that's not part of it, that,
No,
you know,
that's
we
not,
talk
I'm
about
just saying, is
that.
there a way that we could, you know, because when new pieces of equipment are researched and they go through the Monday meeting, and, you know, all of that time is done, but yet when it comes to the council might have a different opinion on economical. So I don't know, I'm just offering that as, it would be nice to have different alternatives presented when it comes to purchases. I know, like, the police department, they always do used vehicles. Well, the majority of the time they do. So, like, I'm not saying that that has to be the criteria put within the policy, but it just takes a lot of time when we're going back and forth, and you're talking to different companies, and you're finding out different lease options and, you know, financing options or bond options. And I just feel like maybe we should broaden the horizon with a term of economical. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
It would be my suggestion to keep us out of getting into some pickles that we've gotten into. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't think the purchasing policy gets us into pickles. We get ourselves into the pickles moving forward, right?
Possibly.
And so do you have something else before we go to Megan?
I do have one other thing.
Okay, please do.
But I don't know if you want
Megan, did you want to address that
answer
particular
I was
piece?
just going to speak to what you just spoke to.
ahead.
And I guess in my vision, part of what Annie had asked for, and we have been working towards in our office, standardizing the requests that come before you, that really should be part of that request. That would be part of the backup with the quotes. That would be why did you, you know, I guess what avenues did you research? Why or why not? Is that the decision that you want to go with? That's kind of a pro-con. Simplifying it, obviously, I don't want to give you guys 18 pages of that, why we did this, but that, in my view, would be part of that request.
That would be extremely helpful. Perfect. That solves that. And then the final thing that I don't know if it's addressed in anywhere in here, because this is regarding purchasing, but it doesn't address receiving the product. And we've had, I think this happened a couple times, but just recent was with the camera system. So we received the product without the payment, without paying for it. So purchasing and receiving the product, could we have a section in there about receipt of product? Like before we can agree to receive any product, we need our finance director to sign off on the completion of the payment. Could that be added to our purchasing policy? Would be the receipt of the piece of whatever it is. That would be another recommendation.
Yeah, for me, you gotta approve the purchase before you receive it, right? I mean, you can't take possession of something if you don't have the money to pay for it, right? I get that analogy. I get that analogy. So yes, yeah, very good, yeah. So those are some of the suggestions moving forward so far for the purchasing policy, some of the suggestions moving forward. And before we go to Councilor Freely, Megan, do you have something else to offer?
I guess I just was going to speak to that. I think the camera situation was wildly crazy to me. I don't know who, it's wild that they allowed us to receive a piece of equipment that's that size without payment. That's very unusual. Normally, we get approved for the purchase. In our office, we create a check, and then the check is, you know what I mean, when we're picking up the equipment, that's when they receive the check. It's kind of a very unusual situation that even was allowed to me. But I am amenable to that situation,
And we're going to ensure that never happens again.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, I don't know exactly what occurred. I think it was kind of a weird situation of different parties doing different things, but.
Thank you. Did you want to continue with your questions?
Have
And
one
then we'll move
final-
over to Councilor Freely. Go ahead.
Since Megan mentioned it. So also, I've noticed on our bill runs, we're cutting checks. So the checks, I don't know if they're getting paid or sent out, but the checks, like Councilor Bachschnider caught the last one, which was the camera. But I want to make sure that we're approving the bill run prior to checks being mailed out. And is that purchasing? Is that part of a purchase? Because if we would have approved that schedule of bills, that check just would have been cut, whether we decided to pull money out of the equipment bond or the contingency fund, we would have just been sending them a check. So how do we stop that from happening? Like maybe address that in the purchasing policy.
Sure, so I guess seldomly do we do manual checks. Generally, all the checks are going through the bill run. It's sometimes I think we have like Vita or, some things
This
are
one
like
was in the bill
BCA.
run. It was actually in the bill run.
Yeah, because it was on the agenda for the night to be approved.
So the
and it was-
camera
And we had it.
to the contractor it was already in there. And I don't know if the check got mailed out already.
It was not mailed out until it was approved. They don't get mailed out until they're approved, unless it's one of the very few. And you'll see, when you get the schedule of bills, the manual checks, it's usually very few. But we don't mail out checks until the schedule of bills is approved.
Okay, so that's just, if that could be addressed, if it need be, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so all these suggestions are being made. And we'll compile all those data, and put that in those suggestions into the revised personnel policy for us to consider. Maybe the next committee of the whole meeting, those should be able to get done, or maybe sooner. But I would think that would be appropriate. Councilor Freely.
My thought that came to mind is, and whether it's legit or not, is we've been cited annually in our audit for a lack of separation of duties. And I'm just wondering if anything we've discussed this morning could potentially exacerbate that, such as removing the name of the city attorney within fiscal policy. So that's just one of the concerns I had. And I think the snafu with the camera was, that was an imperative piece of equipment, given the tenuous nature of our infrastructure in town, and just needed to be accomplished. And it was kind of an ugly pathway, but at least we have it to our disposal and are using it accordingly, so, in any event.
I think that would be on the list to make an inquiry to ensure that we're following proper protocol. Okay, thank you. So any other questions with respect to the purchasing policy moving forward? Councilor Bachschnider?
Thank you. With what Counselor Paulson had said in the having our finance director potentially sign off on certain purchases as well, maybe it just be under the purchases above exceeding the $100,000 or like a certain threshold we added there. And then one other thing I forgot to mention, on page 2 of the policy, 51 of the packet, since our finance director and our HR coordinator were combined in the past, we don't have our HR coordinator called out in level 1, so we may want to consider adding that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bachschnider. Any other discussions moving forward with respect to the purchasing policy? We have a list of suggestions to be incorporated as in a draft for us to review. And you have all that, Pam? I do. Thank you. So it has been, well, we haven't had, do we need a motion moving forward, do we? Just to direct staff to incorporate the recommendations into a draft purchasing policy.
So move. Oh, support.
Move to approve by Councilor Bachschnider and supported by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you. The next item is the review of the updated draft of the city data practices policies. Due to a state statute change, we have to change our, we don't have to, we get to change our policies for our data practices. The biggest change was that if it's not picked up after 5 days, we no longer have to hold it for them or notify them again. Which is great, because I have one that I've been holding for 18 months, waiting for them to pick up, and they still haven't picked it up, so.
You know, I think this is a great statutory change.
It's a good change.
Discussing at the legislature last year, I wasn't part of the testimony, but part of the discussion with our lobbyists and others about the fact that there's these groups that go to all these different cities and they ask for all this documents, all this data, and it comes there and they never pick it up. So this is a very good change statutorily, a wise decision on the part of the legislature, so.
Just a little other sidestep, if we know it's going to be a dollar amount, we do charge them in advance. So that essentially what would happen is you get the invoice in advance and you have 5 days to pay. If you don't pay it, then I'm not going to pull the data. So it's saving time, for a lot of time.
You wait for the payment before you pull the data?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Oh,
very-
yes.
Good,
Yep.
good plan.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it'll save a lot of time, and I really appreciate the legislature for considering that. And
Yep. Thank you.
I will move the updated policy forward.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the updated policy moving forward with the recommended change by taking into account the statutory requirements, supported by Councilor Bachschnider. Further discussion, Councilor Johnson, and then over to Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Should our data request form have that indicated listed on it, so that when they're doing it, they can't say, I didn't know?
no, it's actually part of our response that we would give them. We have a standardized response we give depending on what kind of data practice request you ask for. If it's about a subject, it's this response. If it's about just data, it's this response.
Okay.
And it's in part of that response.
Okay,
where it also
perfect. Thank you.
explains that there will be a fee if it's over so many pages that you will have to pay.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and supported. Further discussion?
Mine was merely an inquiry if it was timely to make that motion, so we're good.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. The others are closed session items.
On item number 11, I have no new information, so we don't have to discuss that if the council does not feel they.
Okay. Before we go to item 12, I have one other item of concern if I'd like to bring up. We have had discussion about this before and doing the research, and thank you, Britt, for investigating this further. We haven't had a compensation study in the city of Virginia since 1994. And I think it's time that we look at and have staff bring together a proposal to accomplish a compensation study, not a equal pay for equal work study, not a comparable work study, but a compensation study. And that would include, you take into account where the compensation is in each individual department, make those comparative estimates, for example. And I'm not, I'm just going to point out one item. When you have they're called administrative assistants, though, before it was a secretary way back in the day, and that continues to be the case. It's concerning to me. I think a compensation study is necessary in all departments, just to make sure that, we at least update it, that you have a administrative assistant who used to be a secretary making more money than a police officer. There's an issue somewhere down the line where we have to make some changes to take a look at if that's adequate compensation or if it's you're overcompensated or undercompensated. So I think for us to take a look at the compensation study, I'm not asking for a motion to move forward. I'm just putting that out there for us to consider down the road. But I think it bodes well to have one, update one. It hasn't had one since 1994, and I think that's when the comparable work study came in. Back in 1994, when I was part of that, when I was down in the Metro. So I think we have to look at a compensation study and have staff take a look at that moving forward, just for sake of discussion moving forward. So, thank you. We go to item 12. Do you have anything else before we go to item 12? Okay, item 12 is a closed session for attorney-client privilege. This portion of the meeting will be closed for attorney-client privilege to discuss potential litigation pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 Subdivision 3. Looking for a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Councilor Beyondich. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Bachschnider. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do we need a break? Okay, let's take a quick break and then come back and move forward with item 12. Thank you.